ready by the time he gets to me.
Good evening and welcome to the
Well,
March 23rd meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. At this time, anyone with cell phones or other electronic devices, if you could put them on silence or shut them off, we greatly appreciate it. Also, if you're here to speak on any applications, and we encourage you to do so, we just ask that you take the podium and identify yourself for the recording secretary. Also, if you're going to leave the podium for any reason, please take the mic with you. We're being recorded by FCTV, so make sure that we get the sound correct. Okay, first up, under other business, update and presentation by the Division of Ecological Restoration on the Coonamessett River Restoration Projects. Beth Lambert.
That's me.
Hey, Beth.
Hi. Where would you like me to stand?
We could move the microphone over if it's easier for you,
No,
or
I'm good.
like move the stand and everything.
Is there, I can stand wherever.
Well, that's okay, but you need to speak into the microphone.
Beth, I can run that for you if you want me to, or if you have a pointer.
If we do this,
You can pick it out.
Okay.
You can just unhook the mic and then she can walk around like this movie star.
hold it the whole time too.
Thank you.
Lights, Jamie?
Oop.
If you don't mind, thank you, sir.
Oops. Do I
No, I
need to
can't
do
see you,
something
Jamie.
to get the projector going?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody had marked them.
That's good.
So technology challenge, let's look at that. It looks like it did.
It's lighting up. Sorry. Great, so good evening. My name is Beth Lambert, and I work for the Massachusetts Department of Fish and Game in their Division of Ecological Restoration. And I manage the ecological restoration program for our division. We work around the state with interested communities and landowners, nonprofits, federal, state, and local organizations on projects that restore rivers and wetlands throughout the state. We've done a lot of salt marsh restoration work on the Cape in particular. We're doing some river restoration work on the Cape, and then we've done a lot of other river restoration work in other parts of the state. So thank you for having me tonight, and I'm just going to give you a short overview of the Coonamessett River Restoration Project, following up on an update that Betsy gave you a few weeks ago, and in preparation for a field tour that is coming up on Saturday, April 2nd, I believe it is. Do you know what time?
10 a.m.
10 a.m. And that will be led by Nick Nelson with Interfluve, which is the design firm that did the design for this restoration project. So I'm going to give you a conceptual overview, and then if you're able to come on the 2nd, you'll get to see what this looks like kind of out in the field and what the work is that's planned more specifically. Okay, so in the next few minutes, I'm going to cover 4 items. First, a little background about the site. Next, a description of what ecological restoration is and how we go about doing it, what that means for the Coonamessett River Restoration Project, and then take any questions or discussion that folks may have. And here you see 2 pictures of the lower bog on the Coonamessett River. The lower bog is in the bottom picture, and then you can see the lower dam in the top picture. So for some background, as you know, the Coonamessett River watershed is a small coastal watershed. It has glacial till geology, meaning that it's a groundwater-fed river. And the picture on the right shows the Coonamessett watershed, which is basically outlined here in this red oval. And at the top, you can see Coonamessett Pond. The river flows from the pond. You can just see a faint outline as it flows south. It heads through some active cranberry bogs, through Pond 14, and then into a bog system discharging eventually out into the Great Pond down at the bottom end of the oval there. So now we're zooming in to the area that I'll be focusing on for the rest of the talk. And you see 3 photos here of the bogs along the Coonamessett River with arrows indicating where the photos were taken. And I need to give credit to Betsy for these photos. So the picture at the bottom is the lower dam, and that is at the bottom end of what we've been calling lower bog. And then the picture in the middle shows you what the middle cranberry bog looks like, and then the top photo was taken just at the outlet of Pond 14 looking downstream, and so that shows you what reservoir or upper bog looks like. And this is the area that we'll be focusing on and that I'll be referring to as sort of the lower Coonamessett River restoration area. This project has had a long timeline. My division, back when it was called the Wetland Restoration Program, got involved in the early 2000s. So there's been quite a lot of data collected over the years and a lot of exploration of what the possibilities are for restoring the Coonamessett River. In 2011, the town and the company Interfluve worked together to develop some river and wetland restoration alternatives. And then the town selected an alternative through a public process. From there, we developed 75% engineering plans, and those are what set us up to go into permitting. And so we began filing permits in 2015. We expect to receive them this year, 2016, and to begin active on-the-ground work in 2017, wrapping it up in 18. And that work will be focusing on the lower bog, with the removal of lower dam, restoration of the bog, and the river corridor through there. The goals are really neat. This is one of the most interesting and compelling restoration projects that we have in Massachusetts, and that is because it brings together the environmental benefits with the community history and the land use history along the river. It combines restoration of the wetland and also increases opportunities for recreation. So we have a wide variety of project goals, but number one, we want to establish a self-sustaining healthy river, a healthy riparian corridor along the river, and then to improve access for bird watching and other forms of recreation. We're lucky in that cranberry bog restoration has become an emerging field in Massachusetts, and so we have several examples of other projects to learn from. We don't necessarily need to follow those, but they give us good understanding and information about how these projects tend to work. So I'm just going to show you a few quick photos of what I'm talking about. This is a project that took place in Plymouth a few years ago. This is the bog under active cultivation in 2005. And this is a remeandering of the river where it flowed through that same bog that you just saw in the previous picture. So it can be a pretty dramatic sculpting of the landscape. And this is what it looks like today. And so you can see wetland plants, you can see large woody habitat, you can see sphagnum moss, which is a really important wetland indicator species, and you can see a variety of plants such as Atlantic white cedars and other wetland species returning. So most of the work took place in 2011, and now this is what it looks like just a few years later. So we know that these bogs can recover and become fully functioning wetlands and rivers with time and with on-the-ground activity. So what is restoration? Restoration is defined as the process of assisting the recovery of an ecosystem that has been degraded or damaged or destroyed. That's kind of the formal definition that we use when we're planning work at a site like the Coonamessett River and the lower bog. So we take that definition then and we apply it to the site that we're interested in. And here are two photos of the Coonamessett River as it flows through the bogs. And so the questions that we ask ourselves in planning our work is, how has the land been damaged, and how can we assist in its recovery? And just as kind of visual clues to what we're looking for in these particular pictures, you can see that the channel is quite simplified. There's very few pools. There's very little riparian vegetation. It's a very simplified habitat system. There's no cover providing shade. In the photo on the left, you can see some excess sand that's been deposited in the channel. So we can start to pick up on these clues simply visually, and then the data that we collect inform the design further. So here's the steps that we go through when we're planning restoration, like the Coonamessett River in the lower bog. We try to understand what the potential of the site is. So what could it be? What could it become? What are the natural processes that are being limited or stressed by how the land has been treated over the years? And then we plan our responses to relieve that stress. And then we kind of step back and let the site evolve over time. So having laid out this basic framework of understanding the site, understanding what processes should be operating at the site, identifying the stressors on those processes, and then planning responses, I'll now walk through what that means for the project and the design that we've come up with for the site. So this is a view standing on the lower dam, looking upstream at the bog, at lower bog. And what you can see in this picture is, although this was once a wetland, you can see a lot of pitch pine species growing in this photo. Those are the conifers. And pitch pines are an indicator of dry soils. And so it's not typical in a wetland to find pitch pines that are dry species, dry habitat indicators growing. That is a function of the sand that's been applied to the bog over the years through cranberry agriculture, which is a common practice. But if we dig below the sand, we find this incredible peat, which you can see a picture of here. And this peat has chunks of wood in it and is very, very organic. And so we know that below that sand is a potentially fully functioning wetland surface. And that is a good clue to what the potential could be for that site, that it could, in fact, once again become a functioning wetland with a river. So if we know it could be a wetland, then we think about our key ecosystem drivers for wetlands, and that's basically water. So we know that we're really interested in the movement of water through the site and restoring that in a way that leads to self-sustaining rivers with riparian wetlands along them. So then the question is, what is limiting that movement of water? On the left, you see a photo in a typical cranberry bog, which shows towards the top of the photo the layers of sand that have been applied over the years through cranberry bog cultivation. And then below that, where the fellow in the picture has his thumb kind of pointing into the wall of the pit there, that's where the peat begins. So sand layers from cranberry bog cultivation are a common stressor at these types of sites. So that's the number one stressor. The second type of stressor that we have at the system is barriers. Barriers to the movement of water and barriers to the movement of fish and other aquatic organisms. So you can see a picture there on the top of the road crossing, John Parker Road crossing, and the culvert, which is carrying the river through that road crossing. And you can see that that would be a very challenging structure for fish to navigate, or turtles or salamanders or any other type of aquatic wildlife. That's the second type of stressor that we tend to find at sites like this. And then the third one you see in the bottom, and that's what I mentioned earlier, which is the simplified channel. So over the years of cultivation, the river channels are typically straightened. They are often wider than they ought to be because they've had so much sand applied to them over the years that it causes the channel to widen. Because there's no riparian vegetation, you don't get roots or large wood that can help create pools. So we have a very simplified channel. And those are the three types of stressors that sort of prevent the site from reaching its ecological potential. So for the Coonamessett River, the lower bogs, taking a step back again, we have a whole host of stressors. And our site is just the lower bog at the bottom end of this photo. So we're not going to be able to address all the stressors with this project, but it's very helpful to list them out because that way we know what we're able to address and what we might save for a later project phase. So for example, the stressors that we have are water quality impacts from upstream development, for example, warm water, overly warm water entering the system from Pond 14 and Flax Pond. We have the straightened river channel. You can see segments there as the river flows through the bog that are straight-ish. And straight isn't a natural form for water. Water prefers to wiggle and meander around. So if you see a straight segment, you know it's been altered. There's no pools or riffles or habitat features, no riparian cover, as I've mentioned before. And then we have a series of barriers. We have lower dam, we have middle dam or middle berm, and then we have John Parker Road crossing. So we have a series of barriers. And then finally, we have a floodplain that's filled with sand. So those stressors are true throughout that bog system, but we're going to be addressing them at that lower bog in the bottom end of the photo.
First.
Sorry?
First. The first phase is to.
Yes, absolutely. So what are our responses to address these limiting factors? So I mentioned the sand. So how can we overcome the impacts from the sand that turn what should be a wetland into more of a quasi-upland? Well, we can increase the soil moisture, and we plan to do that by selectively removing some of that sand and exposing the peat layer, which will allow the wetland plants to grow again. We can remove or upgrade the infrastructure, such as the older dams and the culvert that's a barrier, and then we can reconstruct the stream channel in a more complex form with woody habitat. And that's what we have planned. And these are pictures of those actions taking place at other cranberry bog restoration sites in Massachusetts. So it's really a pretty simple action plan. It's remove the sand to make the site wetter, remove the barriers, and reconstruct the stream channel. So our initial focus is on lower bog, and I'm going to be zooming in on that in a minute. But long term, we will move into planning for the middle bog and the upper bog and for the barriers associated with those areas. So here's our action plan for lower bog. First, remove the lower dam and most of the berm that's associated with it, and to build a trail with a footbridge in its place so that people can still continue to recreate there even more easily, perhaps, with an accessible trail and footbridge. So that's step one. Now the next step, I've just turned the bog on its side here, so now the water is flowing from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen. And the dam is at the lower end on that, just underneath the road that's labeled Cranberry Field Road on the right side there. So the next step is to restore a narrower, more sinuous channel with pools at the meander bends and with large wood for complexity. And what that's basically going to look like is this. We'll have a new channel taking advantage of some parts of the old channel, but a new channel that will meander its way from left to right. Everywhere there's a curve in the channel, there will be large wood jams built, and those will create pools, and as they're being built, we will basically excavate pools at the same time, and I'll show you pictures of this in the next slide. So we're going to have a new stream channel that will be meandering across the bog, and that will automatically provide more complexity because each bend will have pools, and those pools will be good resting spots for river herring and other fish as they're moving upstream and downstream. This is a picture of a project going on right now in Plymouth, which has a lot of channel reconstruction in a former cranberry bog. And at each bend in this project, we're building large wood jams. And so what you can see there is an excavator placing large wood. And this is the type of work that we're going to be doing along the Coonamessett River at each meander bend, such that in the end, the river is going to be pretty well lined with these large wood jams and habitat structures. These are things that would be natural if we had a vegetated floodplain. Over time, the trees would grow up, fall in, form these structures. But because we're kind of starting from scratch without natural tree cover, we're giving things a head start. So these will actually narrow the channel quite a bit. They will create habitat, and we will build pools as we're building these. Then the third step is going to be to remove the sand along the new river corridor to create a riparian corridor. And this will be planted with native trees and shrubs. It'll be lower in elevation, so it'll have more of a wetter feel to it than the streamside corridor does currently. And then it'll be graded back up into the upland. So it won't be like a pooled wetland. It will be more of a wetland riparian corridor. And so that's what that green corridor indicates, is more or less where that sand excavation will take place, expose the peat that we know is there, and that peat is very rich soil for wetland plants. And so we expect to see wetland plants coming up, and we will help them with some planting as well. So from there, it's basically monitoring the results. And so in the upper left, this is from our previous project, the left side of the slide, you see a picture that's labeled time equals 0. When you step away from these projects, the site can look very dramatic because you've created a lot of soil disturbance. What we've seen is that they are reborn very quickly. And so the second photo that says time equals 4 months, that is actually the same photo as the one in the back there that says time equals 0, 4 months later. And that was without active seeding or planting. That's just simply what comes up when the native peat layer is exposed by removing the sand. The 3 years later is the picture in the lower right corner there. Again, same view shed. 3 years later, there's a lot more wetland plant diversity. There's a lot of microtopography in the ground, which creates plants of different types at different elevations. But this is only the start, because the site is going to continue to evolve over time. And so in the top there, we have time equals 100 years with a question mark, because we don't really know what's going to happen in 100 years. And yet that's what we're aiming for. We're aiming for a site which will be self-maintaining, which will have natural ecological processes, which 100 years from now will be a healthy functioning wetland with a healthy, clean, cool river flowing through it. However, we can still monitor the results in our lifetime, and so there are many partners on this project, including the Coonamessett River Trust and others, that will be monitoring how this restoration progresses. From there, as I said, we will be moving upstream. So that one lower bog is really at the downstream end of the river. It gets the cumulative effects of everything. And so to truly restore the health of the river, you need to move upstream from there. And so we will be exploring what would make sense for the bogs upstream from lower bog and the barriers there, the middle berm and the John Parker road crossing. So I want to thank all of the project partners, and you can see a wide variety of emblems on this slide. So we have the Coonamessett River Trust, we have the Botanical Club of Cape Cod and the Islands, we have the 300 Committee, we have various state agencies, Massachusetts Environmental Trust, my division, and the town of Falmouth, which has been providing leadership for this project. And without this team working together, we wouldn't be able to move the project forward. So it's very exciting, and I'm looking forward to actually seeing the project take place on the ground, and for you all to be able to watch what these sites look like when the excavators leave and the plants grow back and the birds come. And it's just really great to watch and be a part of. So thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thanks. Betsy.
I just want to say I'm looking back at a lot of people who have been working on the river for a long time, and I can assure you they'll all be happy to see the river
Yeah.
evolve as
Yeah.
you've described.
Yeah, this is a community where people truly care so deeply about the river. You know, there's a lot of communities where we have to prompt people to care about the river, and here, you know, this river is so treasured by so many people, and it's their energy that really moves this project forward.
So I have one more question. Sure. Although I haven't seen it, I know the ospreys are back, because several people have told me. But I'm looking in the room. Are the herring back? Nope, they haven't started to run yet. Soon.
Or the ospreys will starve.
Yeah, or the ospreys will starve, right?
So again, April 2nd, 10 a.m. Are we going to meet at the site?
At the site.
Meet at the site
South
at 10
end
a.m.
of the lower bog, Betsy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Hope to see you there.
Any questions or comments from the public? Okay.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very
Thank
much,
you, Beth.
Beth.
Jamie, could you move that microphone back on? Can you move the microphone back on to the podium? Thanks. Thank you all. Thanks.
Jamie, can you do me a favor? Can you hit the button on the projector? Thank you.
All right. Request for a continuance on a notice of intent. That's Penzance Point Nominee Trust, 153 Woods Hole Road, Woods Hole, Mass. I'm sorry, 153 Penzance Road, Woods Hole, Mass. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, they have not received the LOMR yet. They are anticipating it any day. They have requested a continuance to March 30th, and I assured them that even if they did not have it March 30th, we would continue them to April 13th.
That's all we're waiting for, nothing else.
Only waiting for the LOMR from FEMA.
Because that's a good project.
They're at their final stage in FEMA.
Yeah.
Yeah, that LOMR is key. So,
Okay, any other questions or comments from the
So move, I make a motion. Don't we have to make a motion?
Continue.
Make a
yes, to
motion
continue to March 30th.
So a motion by Betsy and a second by Mike to continue to March 30th.
Yeah.
This is what, Penn
All
cents?
those,
Correct.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstention unanimous, so moved. All right, request for a determination of applicability. This is the lesser of the two applications. If you're here for one of these, what you want to hear is a negative determination. Edward Welsh et al.'s 4 Circle Drive, North Falmouth, Mass. for permission to pump, fill, and remove the existing cesspool and upgrade the Title V sewage disposal system. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chapman, the staff has reviewed the project. We're recommending a -2 under this bylaw and -3 under the state with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So move.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Courtney, second by Betsy. Any other comments, questions? Comments, questions from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstentions unanimous, so moved. Next up is Linda Twombly, 20 Triumph Street, Falmouth, Mass. for permission to pump and remove the existing cesspool and upgrade with a Title V sewage disposal system. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we are recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
We got a
Second.
motion by Mary and a second by Betsy. Any comments or questions from the commission? Comments or questions from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstentions unanimous, so moved. Next up, Town of Falmouth, DPW, care of Peter McConaughey, Woods Hole Road, map 47-01-040-000, Falmouth, Mass. Permission to remove and replace the existing decking boards and railings. Replace the existing support beams with wood or steel or wood beams and install a helix screw piles. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we are recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Courtney, second by Mary. Any other comments or questions from the commission? Oh,
I just have a question.
Yeah. What is this?
Trunk River Bridge.
Oh, there we go.
Where? Which bridge?
Trunk River.
Okay. That was my question.
Okay, any other comments or questions from the public?
Peter's a good bridge builder.
Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved. Lester and Monica Maroney, 375 Grand Ave, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to renovate the wing of the existing house by demolition, reconstruction, native mitigation plantings, and the associated clearing, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we are recommending a -2 under the bylaw, -3 under the state, with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mike and a second by Courtney.
Question, is this addition in the same footprint, I assume?
Tell you in 1 second, Courtney. Mark reviewed it in existing house. It looks to be, there's a new deck being added, that's a little longer than the existing deck, and a portion of the existing house to be reconstructed. It all looks like, yeah, so it's pretty much the same footprint.
Yeah, and it's, what was it, B zone?
Would you say V zone?
B is in, B as opposed to A.
Yes.
Okay. No,
Closest
no other
resource-
questions.
Closest resource is the coastal bank, right?
Second.
Coastal Bank and Coastal Dune on the other side, yeah.
Any other comments, questions? Comments, questions from the public? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved. All right, next up is MA Mass Coastal Railroad, care of TEC Associates, Tom Lewis. MA Coastal Railroad right-of-way between the Falmouth border with Bourne, just south of Edgerton Drive, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to continue vegetation control that will conform to the guidelines set forth in the Mass MA right-of-way management regulation, 33 CMR 11.00, and the preface to the Wetlands Protection Regulations, 333 CMR 10.00, relative to rights-of-way management. Jen?
Okay, you ready? Staff recommends a -2 on, no,
Oh,
-2 under the bylaw, a -5 under the state.
close.
And the 5 means, before Mr. Powers asked me, it's the exemption.
Because it's the right away? Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we got a motion by Betsy and a second by Courtney. Any other comments or questions from the commission? Comments or questions from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved. Town of Falmouth, care of Ciacarpus, Shorewood Drive, map 33-04-001-001, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to install groundwater monitoring wells using a GeoPro rig. Jen?
Yes, we're recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So move.
Second.
Courtney and Mike. Courtney with a motion, Mike with a second. Comments or questions from the board?
Just a question on what the purpose of the monitoring is. Is it for
This is a-
plume or what
This is
what
a
is it?
water quality.
It's water
Just water
quality.
quality?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
It's for the feasibility study for the permeable reactive barriers.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you.
Not a problem.
Anything from the public? Okay, hearing none, call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Abstention, unanimous, so moved. We're gonna skip the next one because it's a typo, actually. This
Yeah, it's
continues
next week.
left.
I have no idea how it ended up on the public meeting notice for this week.
All right, so request for a hearing under notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authority of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. So first up is James and Donna Curry, Great Bay Street, map 46A-15-00-000B, from the east end of Pecasset Street, south to 271 Great Bay Street, East Falmouth, Mass. Permission to install coastal bank stabilization that includes removal of invasive plants and seeding, installation of fiber rolls, deposit, disposition of beach nourishment, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will hold any of my comments until after Mr. Bortelli's presentation.
Good evening, Mike.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Michael Borselli from Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. The applicant is also represented by Seth Wilkinson of Wilkinson Ecological Design. Seth's firm did the bulk of the design work and narrative and protocols associated with the proposed activities on this property. What I'd like to do is do an overview of the property and then turn it over to Seth, and then we'll both be happy to answer any questions. So the property in question is on the east side of Great Bay Street, basically from Pocasset Street on the north, heading south to a town parking lot just beyond Boston Street. It's on the western shore of Great Pond. The wetland resources of note are land under the ocean, coastal beach, eroding coastal bank, and land subject to coastal storm flowage, which in this case is VE 15. The property owners that we represent own or have an interest in two properties, number 37 Pocasset Street and number 263 Great Bay Street. The work is actually being performed on land of the town of Falmouth. So when we initially met with Jen to talk about this, we were encouraged to get permission not to only do the work, but permission to even apply to you to do the work, filing a notice of intent. So we went to the selectmen and had a discussion with them several months ago, and they encouraged us to proceed and apply to you for filing a notice of intent. If this is approved and we get a favorable order of conditions, we will be going back to them to show them, report to them on the progress, show them that you reviewed and approved it, hopefully, and ask for something called a license, which allows people that don't own the land, owned by, private people to do work on town land. The reason that the applicant's so motivated to do this is he's lived here, they have lived here and summered here for a very long time, and they've watched and become very concerned about the erosion on the coastal bank, and are very concerned first that the erosion will continue and eventually result in a collapse of Great Bay Street. We agree with that concern. Great Bay Street is currently closed to vehicular traffic, and there's boulders here, and it's only open to pedestrian traffic at this point. But beyond that, they're concerned that if it continues to go unchecked, it could erode even to their properties. So they're motivated to apply and have advanced this plan to mitigate and hopefully prevent further erosion with the plan that we're showing you tonight. The work is approximately 200 linear feet, includes a coil log system, coastal bank stabilization, buffer to the coastal bank restoration, and some minor beach nourishment at the toe of the coastal bank. We estimate the volume of beach nourish to be approximately 60 cubic yards. It's all proposed to be above mean high water on a narrow beach that you may have seen if you went to the site. I also want to point out, we did stake this more thoroughly than you may have seen. In fact, we placed somewhere around 50 total stakes out here, delineating all of these elements of the work. And when I went out there just to field check it before tonight's hearing, I saw maybe 8 or 10 stakes, so someone pulled them all out. We don't know who. So, apologize for that, but
He told me he was gonna get an attaboy because of the state.
You should get an attaboy. There was a well state.
But,
oh, you did see some?
I couldn't give it to
Oh,
him.
yeah.
Oh, good. Oh, I don't know when that occurred, but there were, if you went there today, there were a lot more stakes there prior to that. We staked it a week ago. I think that pretty much sums up, oh, one other thing. There's an existing stone revetment that terminates here, and it continues further north. That was installed at some point, not sure by who, but it's been there for a very long time. I presume the town probably did it at one point in time. One of the other things we're proposing to do is adjust this last section of it to pull it back out of land under the ocean and just reset the stones at the toe. If you were out there, you might have noticed how the water sort of goes up behind the revetment in that place because this bank has been eroded away. It really is a telltale sign of how much erosion's occurred over time. So with that, I'm here for questions, and I'll turn it over to Seth.
Mike? I'm sorry.
Seth.
I'm sorry. I was gonna see.
Thank you. For the record,
I see
Seth
Jamie
Wilkinson.
said Mike and not Seth. Got it. Sorry, Seth.
No problem. Seth Wilkinson, Ecological Design, here on behalf of the Currys. I think Mike gave a great overview, so I'll just hit the other points in a little more detail. The land does slope as you get closer to the beach and landing. So we just are basically following that slope downward. So the highest that the array gets is about 5 feet because 20-inch fiber rolls aren't actually 20 inches. They're 18 at best. And when you put them on a slope, at a 1.5 to 1 slope, which is what's proposed, then they rise about 12 inches per fiber roll. So it starts at 5, closer to the north, and as you get closer to the beach and the landing, it's only 2 high, because the road is there very close to the beach at that point. We're proposing relatively conventional anchoring technique with duckbill anchors. They are shaped like a duckbill. They're very low profile. They're driven in about 42 inches into the sediment, and then you pull back and it sets the anchor. It's only about 7.5 inches wide, so it's very minimal intrusion into the sediment. And by anchoring them properly, we've had very, very good luck with this method of creating a stabilized toe. I would refer to this as toe reinforcement. We're not going all the way to elevation 15, 100-year flood elevation. We'd be next door in people's yards, I think, if we were that high. The road elevation only comes up to about 9 feet, so the surge in a 100-year storm would be 6 feet higher than the road, which is a little concerning. So this is just trying to stabilize the most exposed face at the lower elevations of the flood elevation that you'd expect to see in a major storm. And they are also, the upper rolls in the array are actually pre-vegetated. So the day they go into the site, they have plants growing in them, which is a nice improvement that we've developed over the last 5 years. Turns out plants will grow in a controlled environment like a native plant nursery, which is what we have, start the plants and the fibrils, get them well established, or just install them just before installation, and then they start growing as soon as it's a good growing season. And they will tolerate growing a coconut fiber, but they really want to get their roots into the sediment below, and so we want their roots there as well, because that helps to lock the fibrils in long term. And then after it's constructed, the area is covered with sand so that we can preserve that very important protected function of coastal banks, which is to continue to serve as a sediment source. This is a nice attribute of the design because there's obviously the Conservation Commission wants to see that this important function remains long-term, and we start on day one explaining to the clients, and I think these clients understand well, that there's also a significant benefit for them. They can increase the expected lifetime of their fibril array if they do keep it covered and keep that protected function at a minimum of threefold. So you can get, if you consider a completely unmaintained fibril array, which in my opinion there's far too many of those out there on the Cape and Islands, you can expect about 7 to 10 years of life out of just leave it out in the sun, don't ever cover it in sand, don't plant it, essentially a soft revetment. Then if you cover it and maintain it, you can expect decades of performance. So they are a significant investment, and I think the property owners understand that and are very motivated to also preserve that function. And that is detailed in our work protocol, which was submitted with the date of March 1st. Both the nourishment and the ongoing maintenance, which both are very important. I lecture on this subject all over New England on a fairly regular basis. There's also a aggressive planting component, because bioengineering is both plants and living plants and dead plants used together to stabilize landforms. And in areas where there already is tow protection, such as the existing riprap, low revetment there, I think bringing that out of the intertidal zone will be a benefit to the resource area. It's not going to change its actual footprint at all, just get it out of the intertidal zone and pull it back to the toe of the bank, which is where it was originally constructed. And then we're tucking the fibrils in behind that so that you won't tend to see that continued end scour that's obviously been happening here. So that's also going to help to mitigate any energies coming off of that long-established coastal engineering structure. In areas above that, for those of you who've seen the site, you saw what a severe invasion. One good thing I guess the erosion's doing is it is removing some invasive plants, but there's not much in the way of native species left on that bank. It's almost exclusively invasive. So we're also proposing to, this is a good practice, continue on the coastal bank up to the edge of the road to the stairway to remove those invasive species, because the fear is with the very, very shallow roots that species like Asiatic bittersweet have, that even with a tow reinforcement of the riprap, you could have slumping and destabilization further back there, and I'd like to avoid having to put fibrils there after it gets wiped out. Yeah, I think there's still a chance that you could stabilize that naturally with that little bit of tow reinforcement that's there, and just replant it as proposed, and stabilize it just with erosion control blankets. So just enough to sort of hold the sediment for the plants to take root. With that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions the commission might have.
So Seth, you would be looking, I read, for the order of conditions to contain, or the certificate of compliance to contain a provision that the applicant be allowed to add 50 to 90 cubic yards of sand annually?
Yes, I know every town does address this a little bit differently. We are seeing that as fairly common, so that to make sure that that function of, because the fibril array will last longer than the life of the permit, unless we have a really big storm. So to be able to preserve that important function, sediment contribution to the adjacent coastal resources, there's different ways of doing it, but either extending the life of the permit as long as possible or ongoing conditions, that's really the commission's discretion ultimately, but I think it's in both best interest of the regulations as well as the applicants.
And do you have any shrub material incorporated into where you're doing the invasive species removal, or just all grasses?
We have
Because I didn't really, did I miss it in here?
Sure. We do have planting spec, and we haven't proposed that at this time. That's primarily just a cost issue. And, you know, it's not the proponents, to be careful, applicant proponents' land, and they are making a substantial investment between the fiber rolls, the invasive plant management, the plugs and the seed and all the other areas that they'd like to see that get stabilized as quickly as possible, but that's a lower cost way of doing it. So that's what's being proposed at this point.
The staff would probably like to see some shrub material incorporated into that. I understand, you know, the applicant is choosing to do this, so usually when we see these types of coastal bank restoration projects by your own company, we usually see a lot more shrub material, some shrub material incorporated into the design, so that is something the staff would like to see. Other than that, I don't have any other questions or comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Jen. Mike?
Clearly needed. The utility pole at the end of Boston Street is,
Being threatened.
yeah, that's polite. It's,
Well, I try to be polite.
yeah, maintenance, what kind of effort do you see it each year?
It's really dependent on the type of winter that we have. So
Okay.
it's a great time of year to talk about it. We've looked at dozens and dozens of projects on the Cape Islands in the last month. And basically, this is a relatively mild winter. We had some nor'easters, but we didn't have anything like the January storm a year earlier. So we were doing a lot of maintenance, more stress on the fiber rolls. You have type of things, as we articulate in the protocol. Go out, tighten the cables. If there's a little rip in the blanket, stitch up the blanket with some biodegradable twine. Relatively modest things, but more sand nourishment. January 2015 took away a lot more sediment off most sacrificial areas such as this. Then maybe we lost half, roughly, as much sand, sacrificial sand, or the nourishment sand, after this winter on average. So this year we've really just been occasional tightening of a cable, but mostly renourishment. The worst winter, you're going to have a little bit more repairs, but it fluctuates with the weather.
No other questions?
Woody?
Did I miss something here? Who owns this? Is this town land or is it?
It's town land, Courtney, and they did go to the,
So
to the board.
it's
of
got the
Selectmen.
blessing, okay.
Well,
That's
they went to the Board of Selectmen to get permission to come before this board. That was done, and if this board issues a favorable order of conditions, they will go back to the Board of Selectmen to obtain a license to do the work. So yes, the board is aware.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Thanks, Woody. Betsy?
I know the board's aware because I was there the night giving the steamship talk, the night they gave their presentation. I have a couple of comments. One is, if you really want to stabilize the top of that slope, I agree with Jen, and I know you would agree with it too, that shrubs would do a much better job. But we can discuss that when we write the order. Couple of questions. How long are your core logs?
The individual
Did you
logs
say-
are 10 foot.
10 foot?
10 foot in length.
Okay. And so you have no idea how that riprap got there or how long it's been there? I mean, I think that riprap probably.
I think
has
it got there by
contributed.
like cranes, but I don't know how long it's been.
Crane, I mean, dropped over the edge.
Mechanical cranes installed it a long time ago. I've been here since '84, and it was there
Yeah, but I'll bet that's
way
contributing,
before then.
is contributing to this. I mean, that's why we don't want hard riprap.
Right.
So let me just, so we can get this on the record. So your testimony is that during the storm, the sand will be sort of taking the brunt of the waves and distributing the sand to either side, as opposed to deflecting waves to either side. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. Yes,
right.
that's.
Okay, and the only other comment that I want to make, because we had a similar project recently, and we mentioned this today when we talked. We do have a provision where we can give a 5-year order, isn't that correct, Jen?
Yeah, but it's for dredging, it's for
Oh, it's
very
only for a
particular, yeah, it's
specific
for
thing?
very specific things,
Okay,
but we
but
can,
what I would suggest, two things. One is, the last one, the maintenance was, we'll check it once a year. And I said, well, you know, what if you check it the day before the hurricane? So, you know, and I think you recognize that. You like to keep these up. So we'll put in the order that you'll be checking it at least annually, but also after a major storm. And I would suggest, and what we suggested in that, is that after the order, we still keep track of what's going on through RDAs, and then if needed, if you have to do major work, then you'd have to come back. And that's all.
Mary?
I really just have a comment, and it's, it's not something that I, as a commissioner, would be concerned about, but it seems that the site is a place where there's a lot of activity. And there's a lot of trash there, a lot of beer bottles and all that kind of stuff. I have a strong suspicion as to what happened to your steaks. And if I were your clients, maybe I'm off base, but if I were your clients, I'd be worried about wasting my money with a lot of trampling and disturbance of the installation.
I have a comment on that. When we go to the selectmen for a license, we might ask them if we might be able to place some signs and some things. I mean, signs don't stop people if they want to do it, but at least you can't say you didn't know about it.
Yeah,
If
right.
you get caught, it's vandalism. Those stakes, I mean, that's vandalism. You're not supposed to remove survey stakes. It's, you can get arrested for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's particularly bad because it's a designated public access spot, so I don't know what is to be done about it, practically
Well, we're
speaking.
doing this to maintain public access.
Yeah, I know, but anyway, that's my reaction.
Sure, I appreciate that, and I will take that back to the Currys. One thing that does occur to me just as you're saying this is the fact that those, the plugs, the 2-inch, 5-inch deep plugs that are inserted into the fiber rolls that root in very quickly, they do because they're growing in a fiber roll, which is very spongy. If someone actually physically tried to pull the plants out, it would actually be harder to pull them out than if they were in just like beach grass planted in the sand. And it also, I think, tends to hold up to foot traffic a little bit better. I mean, if there's crowds of people running over, that's going to be problematic. But the fact that there's a lot of vegetation, especially along the top, will likely discourage people. Maybe the most effective signs might be the warning deer tick habitat sign.
Poison ivy.
Yeah, plant some poison ivy.
Definitely sprinkle some seeds. I haven't found that one at the commercial nurseries yet, but we can find some seeds. Thank you.
Well, good luck.
Thank you, Mary.
That's all.
Jamie?
Nothing to add.
All right.
Make
Mr.
a
Chairman.
motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
A motion by Betsy, a second by Mary. Close the hearing, take it under advisement. Any other comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Chairman, can I just get one clarification before the hearing?
Absolutely.
Just with regard to, I think the proponents will be willing to plant some shrubs. Would the commission, will have everyone together, consider your smaller size shrubs? I'm also thinking about the watering across a road can be a little challenging, and smaller plants do better at the, more like the 1 gallon size. Get them established, keep the cost down, and also the survival rates will be higher with a harder to water area.
I think we discussed that.
We'll consider it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
if you can give us any
I think
guidance.
that's
On the
a
record,
reasonable
that would be great.
request, too. I can understand the watering issue. Okay, any other comments, questions from the public? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of closing the hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved. You're welcome.
I just put you in my stand.
Okay, we're gonna move on to continue request for hearing on notice of intent. We need a motion from somebody. We're gonna table the Steamship Authority and take 39 Point Road first after a request from Mr. Borselli and an agreement by the Steamship Authority. They had no problem.
Move to table the continued hearing for the steamship authority.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to table from Mary, second by Courtney. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
John and Jillian Hayes, 39 Point Road, North Falmouth, Mass. I've already read this into the record, so.
Thank you,
Good evening,
Mr.
Mike.
Chairman. Thank you to folks at the Steamship Authority. I'll be as brief as I can. This is a continuation of the original public hearing. We made some revisions to the plans after comments from you folks and further discussions with the applicant, and I'll just summarize those quickly. The applicant has decided, due to cost, to consider only portions of the project at this time and look at phasing in other aspects. The aspect that is no longer being proposed is the buffer restoration. They recently acquired the property. They haven't even lived through a summer with it yet. So they've decided not to do any buffer restoration at this time. They're going to live with the property and consult with Blue Flax Design and consider coming back in the future for that. The biggest thing I think that you had a concern about was the fencing for the pool security. We eliminated the pool security fencing from the areas where you were concerned. In fact, after consulting with the pool designer, the only places you really need the pool fencing are right at the stairways with gates because of the way the pool is designed. The pool itself is a barrier from security, for security purposes, so the fence isn't really necessary. We are still removing pavement in this area to compensate for the increase in impervious surface here. They've decided to create a little grass area instead of native plants in this area, so it'll be drought tolerant fescue in accordance with your standards, and instead of plant material, it'll be grass. I think that sums it up, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mike. Jen?
I don't have any questions.
I don't get what the pool fence is gonna be. It's just around the pool? Well, you have to have some kind of a,
The way this pool is designed, there's some relief. It's above grade, so
Oh.
it's high enough.
so in order to get up.
You'd have to
get in-
climb over, the same as you'd have to climb over a fence.
Okay,
But you do need it at the gates, instead, at stairs with gates.
okay.
Mary?
I guess my only question, I'm trying to remind myself of what's in the submission here, is whether we need anything revised, if the plan's being revised, but I don't,
Well, there is a revision. I don't think that you need to even vote to adopt the Blue Flax design plan at this point, because there's no work associated with that plan.
We can make a finding that no work is associated with the
yeah,
blue
okay,
flag
all right,
plan.
that's all.
I forgot to mention, the cedar trees that we were contemplating trying to relocate, they're staying right where they are. We're not moving those.
Well, good, that solves another problem.
Yeah.
That's all for me, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Mary. Jamie?
Just to be clear, that pool's 4 feet out of the ground.
Yes.
The grade doesn't seem like it would allow that.
They're actually stepping up 1 foot from the deck up to the coping. That's how they're gonna accomplish the 4 feet.
Thank you.
What?
Thank the applicant. We had concerns and they were addressed.
20?
We'll move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
Okay, motion by Courtney to close the hearing, second by Mary. Any other comments, questions from the commission? Comments, questions from the public? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Mike,
Good night.
Mike.
All right, next up. Woods Hole Steamship Authority, care of William Cludier, 29 Lubscombe Ave, and 33 and 36 Railroad Ave and Railroad Ave map, 51A. I'm not gonna read this because it's already been read into the record, so.
So, for the recording secretary, so Mike and I are recusing ourselves. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just texted Maury. I don't know if she's going to be able to make it.
Okay.
Okay? So I just-
Okay. So, we'll miss the family, so.
So what do we have for a quorum?
You're looking at it.
Four of us.
Four of us. For you.
We're down to we all better stay
We
alive.
Okay, Mr. Cludier.
For the record, my name is Bill Cludier. I'm with the Steamship Authority. Also present with me at this meeting is Wayne Lamston, our general manager, and Steve Sayers, our general counsel. So just to summarize where we are, from our last February 17th meeting, we're awaiting the town council's determination on whether or not we're exempt from the wetland bylaws. We've also requested a continuation to try to address some of the concerns with the grading of this, that you folks have with the grading in the site. And we've made submittals. We've actually submitted the technical bulletins, number 5 from FEMA, that is our guideline for designing the grade increases, which in that bulletin, they state that for floodplain management purposes, sites slope shallower than 1/20, regardless of the fill height, are assumed not to cause or worsen wave run-up, reflection capable of damaging adjacent buildings. And this is our guideline that we've been using for our design. Catherine Bumpers raised a concern about floodwater drainage along Luscombe Avenue and Railroad Avenue. We submitted in our last submittal a bulkhead design change to keep the bulkhead in that area at the same elevation as it is today at 6. So there actually won't be any changes in the floodwater drainage along that way. We own the property between Luscombe Avenue, at the corner of Luscombe Avenue and Railroad Luscombe and the Railroad. And so the height will not be any higher than the North Sun Trust bulkhead at that location. So the water will flow over our property if it has to. We received, in that time, we received the town DPW's engineering review of our proposed stormwater management design, and it concluded that the proposed design is a vast improvement over the existing system and doesn't appear to be any potential adverse impacts to abutting properties. It appears the proposed system will meet or exceed the stormwater management standards and the town's requirements. We enclosed a series of drawings to depict the floodwaters, how the floodwaters will rise and recede in the neighborhood. Clearly, the neighborhood will continue to flood based on its elevation, regardless of what the terminal elevations is. I mean, we can't change the elevations, but we don't feel that any changes on our terminal will affect the neighborhood. Finally, we submitted some dry floodproofing references, FEMA P9-36, floodproofing non-residential buildings, because we believe that we can meet the intent of the town's wetlands bylaw 10.38 while building the terminal at BFE and dry floodproofing the building to meet or exceed the bylaw elevation requirement. So that's where we are today. We're hoping we can get some kind of determination from the board.
Okay. Jen, any comments before we move on here?
No, Mr. Chairman, just that one of the big things was the board did want to give council the opportunity to review and comment on the Steamship Authority's letter by their council, and that was done.
Yep.
So,
It was held
just to
in
let the board know, if you start to discuss that memo, it does become a public record.
Well, I think we should make it a public
Yep.
record.
Then
it
that's
was held in-
absolutely up to you.
Attorney,
Um,
privilege, so.
And also that you did receive some additional information today that's
Yeah,
in
I
front of
haven't-
you from the Woods Hole Community Association.
I got that tonight, I haven't had a chance to
Okay.
read it all.
I did give them a copy of that, Catherine. Not a problem.
Did you make extra copies of this? Because we've got to discuss this, and
I have one copy for the Woods Hole Community Association and one copy for the Steamship Authority.
Would you like a copy, Mr. Smith?
Absolutely.
It's a
And
very
Catherine.
requested document, so.
Do they need to vote to make public?
No, they're gonna start discussing it. I think our guidance was once they started discussing it, it became an open record. There you go. I know you both
Yep.
have been
It's
waiting
open.
for it.
So I'm gonna just pass off this
Okay.
here because I'm sure.
And just to let you know, so basically, what a discussion we had, Mr. Chairman, with council was, the end of page 2.
Yeah, it was about the third paragraph. Right. It remains a subject to regulation, including anti-nuisance regulations that do not interfere with its ability to fulfill its essential government purpose and have only negligible effect on its operation. You see that, Mr. Sayers?
Actually, I was busy reading and I can't multitask very well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I'm looking at the bottom of page 2. That seems to
Okay.
be the conclusion. I don't know where you were.
He was on, I mean, if you want a second to absorb it,
You didn't get a
Mr.
copy,
Sayers,
uh,
it's fine.
Can you show me the first page?
Sure.
No, this is from weeks ago.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right.
You have a copy of that?
Thank you.
Was that,
I don't have it with me, but I would call.
okay.
Okay.
Thank
Mary, you wanna borrow mine?
It's all right. Thank you.
Okay.
And then moving down, there's also, I just want you guys, I'm throwing this out there for discussion, so. And it also refers to at trial, the town must establish that enforcement of its public health regulations in relationship to the salt shed, which is just the particular case that this is addressing, will not unduly interfere with the highway department's ability to perform its essential government mandate. So again, it refers back to that. Are we interfering with their essential?
Governmental functions.
Function.
Basically, the question before the board, as Frank states, is whether the Steamship Authority can apply FWR 10.38, that is your flood regulations, which require everything to be built to the base flood +1 in this particular case, to a new terminal, and not interfere with their ability to perform their governmental functions. And that's what you need to determine, and it's also why the commission was presented the, what was it, your notification, your environmental notification form that showed a few of the different concepts that had been explored throughout the past couple of years on a terminal design. So you have that information in the record.
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
It's not only, as I read Mr. Duffy's opinion, it's not only without interfering with our ability to perform our essential governmental function, but it can only have a negligible effect on our operations.
Mhm.
And I think the record
Yeah,
here.
I did not, okay, I'm sorry about that.
Yep.
Okay,
Correct.
and that's what Mr. Duffy's opinion is. I have a further opinion that applies to statutes that he's considered here, which are not limited, the applicability of those statutes are not limited just to persons and citizens. We have the additional argument that the bylaw on its terms doesn't apply to us as a matter of just statutory construction. But going even with Mr. Duffy's opinion, I think it's clear in this case that if we were held to comply and have the building's elevation be higher than, or 14 feet or higher, which is the current wetlands protection bylaw, as I understand it.
Correct.
That would adversely affect our ability to have accessibility that we absolutely need for the function, for the performance of our terminal. We do carry thousands of people there through the terminal each day. We talked about that the last hearing we were here. Having it any higher would either require us to have switchback ramps, or somehow that's going to impede the flow and impede our operation. That's more than a negligible effect on our operations. Or we would have to build even higher. One of the concepts that we originally had considered back in 2013 was what we referred to as our original Concept C. That was the one where we were able to build the terminal 25 feet above on a deck, have all the staging underneath. It provided an operational ability to do that. And the problem with that is that the community, it was our wildest dream. It was a great dream to have everything that we could fit in there, and it was the community's worst nightmare. That, I think, clearly would have an impact on our operations that would be more than negligible. But that is the way that we were able to do it and comply with our accessibility requirements. We have other statutes we have to comply with, and accessibility is one of them. And we feel that that's an essential thing we cannot disregard. We also don't know whether that Concept C, if we were forced to go to it by this commission because of the application of the bylaw, we would get all the permits that would be necessary for that. Because it would require a right-of-way from the Crane Street Bridge, which is part of the state highway. So given that by itself, I think the record would show that applying the bylaw, in this case to our project, would have more than a negligible effect on our operations. Also, after we considered that in November of 2013, we got cost estimates for the three initial concepts. That was by far, as you can imagine, the most expensive alternative that we had before us. It was around $10 million more than Concept B and $20 million more than Concept A. All these concepts since have changed because we tried to accommodate everyone's concerns. But given that it could be anywhere from $10 to $20 million more expensive, under our Enabling Act, we are required to set our tariffs to meet the cost of service. And so we would have to raise our rates substantially for that on the Martha's Vineyard route, and that would affect our ability to perform our essential governmental function of providing an economical and efficient transportation service for the islands. So I think the record, I don't know what facts you would point that it may not have a negligible impact on our operations. I think that there are more than sufficient facts already here that would show that it does.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
You folks have gone through a lot of iterations, and
Only 14.
and I think you've tried to reach out to the community and all the stakeholders and so on, and you're to be commended by that. I mean, it's you're proposing a significant change down there, and it's going to have some impact. There's no question. On the other hand, the other side of that coin is, you guys have to plan for the future and reality and all of that. That all said, one of the concerns that I had, and I'm not entirely persuaded by, I'm quite persuaded by the Woods Hole Group's analysis of adding X number of feet of fill. My question is right now, and because we've seen so much, what you're proposing with I think you have a first floor that's going to have some kind of flood insulation so that you don't necessarily have to go elevate 1 foot above the, whatever it is.
Right, and the state building code will be 2 feet.
Yeah, so if you did that, how many feet above the existing grade would the first floor of that steamship authority building be?
The first floor of the new building, the floor would have an elevation of 13 feet above sea level, and the site currently is around 6 to 7 feet above.
So you're dealing with 7 feet difference.
7 feet. Which is already substantially higher, and for us to go even higher would be even more dramatic.
No, and I think, and quite honestly, I mean, that's a reasonable approach to take. I mean, if the state building code and those people accept the concept of sort of flood-proofing the first level, you know, I think that makes sense.
Courtney, if I may, I'm Bill Cloutier.
Yeah, and Bill, I know at times you've evinced a considerable amount of frustration with all of the changes, and, you know, that's,
No, it's a complicated project.
It is,
and it's-
absolutely.
And it's controversial, and so I fully understand everybody's concerns. And
Right.
I've been doing this for almost a lifetime, so I
Yeah.
understand everybody has different view on things. But we would be, the first floor elevation would be above the BFE 13. Okay, so we would dry-proof, flood-proof, probably 2 feet above that. Okay, to meet CZM's requirement for sea level rise. And that would also, in our purview, in our minds, would also cover the wetlands bylaw.
right, and I'm not, personally, I don't
Because
disagree.
the wetlands bylaw
Yeah.
doesn't clearly state that you have to be above 1 foot plus. It says that you have to be able to meet the 14 feet. And I think, like CZM is accepting dry flood proofing for sea level rise, and we thought we met that for the wetlands bylaw as well. And so,
And from a lot of
in
different,
fact,
yeah,
you know,
and from a
so
lot of
it's an
different.
interpretation here, but.
And from a lot of issues, not aesthetic as well as environmental and as well as whatever, you know, the less you have to elevate that structure, you know, for a lot of reasons, the better it is for access and
The key
all
is
those.
access, the whole thing is access.
Yeah, absolutely.
We spent 6 to 9 months trying to come up with the right elevations to get access in all directions. Yeah,
And frankly, I don't have an issue with working the flood proofing and coming up with a floor elevation that may be slightly below, but it meets those criteria. I guess my only issue is having to end up raising the grade all around it in order to, for whatever reasons, as opposed to, you know, building your access approaches in a different way.
Well, I think we've done that, you know, carefully and by all the standards, you know, the FEMA standards, to assure that it won't affect the neighbors. By staying at 1 on 20, we meet the access, we meet the FEMA requirements. And, you know, the elevations in the neighborhood are what they are. So when the flood occurs, the lowest elevations are gonna flood.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, the water's gonna rise on the same plane, you know, up to wherever, and then recede similarly. It's not gonna be channeled, we're not pushing water over in one direction versus another. We're talking
Well,
about the whole ocean here, not.
That's assuming still water rise as opposed to wind and tide-driven rise. That's where your issue is, and in a hurricane, you're gonna have flood-driven,
Right, but.
not
FEMA
still water.
standards-
Still water rise, no question. It's, you know, water, we all float the boat the same way, but
The
I'm,
FEMA, but I'm, you know, I'm quoting the FEMA standards saying that, you know, a 1 on 20 will not affect wave runout, wave deflection.
and
so
yet,
forth.
but Woods Hole Group
Which
Right.
is-
Courtney, it's
recognizes that's a problem.
Coastal, applied coastal,
Applied coastal, I'm sorry.
thank you.
They didn't have any comments on the grading, did they?
Yeah, they did. They talked about the impact of raising the grade and, you know, having not still water flooding, because still water flooding is a different kettle of fish, you know. And if you have still water flooding, all Woods Hole below a certain grade is going to be below water.
Right, and this is where our response was that we're, you know, we're following
Yeah,
the
and
standards.
I don't have an issue with still water flooding, because that's not the problem. The problem is, when you have a hurricane, you've got,
But this technical bulletin is to address construction in a velocity zone. And you know, they're looking specifically at wave run-up and deflection and that sort of thing. So
Yeah,
I'm doing the best I can, best
No,
knowledge.
Bill, I appreciate that, and I realize you're, it's people like me that are a PIA, but anyway, that's the, that's my, that's part of why I'm sitting here on the commission. I mean, in the end, I'm hoping that by raising these issues, that what ultimately comes up with for the Steamship Authority, for the Woods Hole community, for Falmouth, is the best possible outcome. That's really all I am concerned about.
And we want that too, although we realize everyone has different opinions,
Yeah,
clearly.
and some of this is a compromise
Right.
between a bunch of different perceptions, you see.
But if we were, for example, if we were not to have that grade elevation raised in front of the terminal, we wouldn't have the accessibility by land. So we would have to put those flying pedestrian bridges there. And because the pedestrian bridges, the cars have to get under them, we can't just do it at the 9 feet that the elevation is, or the grading there. We would have to go up even higher, and that means the building would have to start higher, or it would have to be pushed back farther away from the land, which our former Falmouth board member, Catherine Norton, when she looked at a previous version, I think it was the one in May of 2014, where we had the terminal building farther away from the water, she said people with disabilities aren't going to be able to walk that far. And not everyone's in a wheelchair, and not everyone's there, and not everyone thinks they have a disability who still have mobility problems. She said that's just too far. That's why we came back from the May meeting to the June meeting, switching the location of the terminal building closer to the water because of the need of all of our passengers, not just the ones with physical disabilities, to be able to walk with some convenience to the boats and back. And so we've looked at, I know Bill has looked at a lot, and we've paid a lot of money for very expensive architects and
No, I'm
engineers
sure
to
you
look
have.
at this. And if we didn't have that grade, it would have to be a completely different terminal that really no one wants. And
Well, all I can say is, I'm concerned about the impact of the increased grade on the potential for floodwater diversion, and I'm talking about in velocity situations. I appreciate that FEMA wrote that, and maybe it's just, I'm looking at it from, going back to my days when I was 4 years old and I sat in my bathtub and pushed water around and watched what it did. And I realize that's not FEMA and that's not a standard, but what I'm getting at is it's a concern. And it comes down to what's called Murphy's Law, and when something can go wrong, it will. And we can all stand here and be satisfied that the FEMA regulations are such that it won't be an issue. On the other hand, I'm not going to fall on my sword on this. I'm raising this issue because I'm concerned about it. Does that mean I'm going to blow up the project, as it finally comes in front of us? No.
well, thank you for that, certainly.
I'm just raising these concerns.
Right, and the other aspect for that, also the bulkhead is going to be increased, so the water isn't even going to get onto that fill immediately because it's going to be stopped. It's going to have to come with some force, so that is going to stop it from being diverted from our property onto others. So
I don't have any other questions. I've said my piece here.
My view, I've come to feel much what Courtney has expressed, having read the FEMA regulations. I am not an expert on these things, and FEMA regulations is what a lot of, everybody has to follow. So we've got the 5% grade, and that's not exceeded anywhere on the site. I mean, it's low.
That's our goal.
Okay.
There may be one location where we between Railroad Avenue towards the terminal building, that it would be one on 12 or 30 foot. We would have a railing, but we're still working on that. We're trying to get the one on 20.
And
The deal we can't handle railings all over our site, so we can't do a 1 on 12.
if I can just make sure, the site itself is going to be 1 in 20. To get up to the plaza, to the building, there are going to be ramps there which are 1 in 12. Little thing, and also to get onto the piers, there may be ramps there instead of walkways so we can shorten the elevation. But those are incidental. The
I'm
site-
talking about Phil, really.
I just want to make sure.
The fill portion will be 1 on 20, but
Okay.
at some where it's just personnel, public personnel access, we might wind up with a
Okay.
ramp.
And do you, what's in, anywhere on the site, the maximum height of the fill you're talking about?
The maximum height is the plaza height, which would be 10.5, elevation 10.5. And then
So what would the fill amount be? What's the current elevation?
the current elevation is around between 5 and 6.
Okay.
Yeah, so you got 4 to 4.5 feet of fill.
Yeah, all right. That's all for me now, thank you.
Jamie, anything?
How does all this affect the fueling operation? What'll change in that regard?
The fueling is going to be a lot improved. We're going with a standard that we have here in Hyannis that we established. It'll be there'll be a single fueling location for the drive-on truck, okay? He'll plug in to an underground pipe and then feed fuel to each slip to the boats, and they work, so it's a double-walled underground pipe. We're not throwing, and then to the slip. So we're not putting, 1,000 gallons of fuel right next to the bulkhead anymore. It's going to be more in
Storage?
no storage. We never store on sites, any of our sites.
Thank you.
Just a question, while you're on that, is there an alarm or something to let you know if there is fuel
There are alarms.
into that?
There's alarms,
Space?
there's a hose reel, there's alarms, and they're in complete communication with the boat with walkie-talkies when they're doing a fueling operation.
Sure.
Maybe it's a-
I do have one more question. I'm not sure which one of you it's more appropriate for, but, Mr. Saris, you mentioned before the costs of the different alternatives, and you were talking about the one with the elevated, the one that was totally elevated.
Right.
And you said that would be a very significant cost passed on to the users. Can you estimate in percentage terms what very significant means, say, in the cost of a ticket for a person or a car? I'm just asking for an honest ballpark. I know,
I know, assuming it's a $20 million cost.
right.
It all depends how we assess it against the people. And it's only assessed against, because of our route allocation, it would only be assessed against the Vineyard route customers, because it wouldn't be fair to assess it on the Nantucket route customers. I think we had, Wayne may be doing the calculation in the back at the moment, because he's better at that than I am. We were talking about maybe a 2 to 5% rate increase for the terminal for every $50 million or something. It could.
2 to 5
2 to 5%?
for every 50 million? Is that what you said? No, I'm just trying to write it down.
It would be amortized, so you'd have to factor in the cost of the bonding. We don't have the bonding capacity potentially also. Could put us over the bonding capacity. We only have $100 million, and we're up against the edge of that bonding capacity, so we may not be able to finance it either. That's another, I mean, the more I think of it, the more problems there are with that. But if you even assume, let's say, a 1 to 2%, let's go down with that level, there would be a cost increase on the island. And if we have to increase their cost of tariffs by inflation every year by 2 to 3% to make certain, I'll put in a plug here, to make certain, and our Falmouth employers are going to make certain that our employees are paid appropriately, according with the cost of living, so we have to have some type of rate increase because we can't become more efficient every year as we've become. So that would be added on to any other rate increase they would have. So it's that point where you have to factor it into what the island residents have to pay. It's the same as if you had to pay $40 or $60 every time you went over the Bourne Bridge. And you have people who do that. 1%, may not be a significant cost to you one time, or maybe for a tourist going over. But if you're an island resident, then you have to do it 2 or 3 times a week
Right.
or something. It adds up.
Okay,
So-
I was gonna ask, well, you don't really mean just the residents, but I understand what the point you're making.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 to 5%, is that?
No, I would even say, for the Martha's Vineyard, the problems are, not only do we have to factor it into the rates, so let's even go down to a 1% for argument's sake, because I can't do that calculation now. But all the other impacts it would have on our bonding ability,
Right.
our financing ability, the interest rates, and the other operational issues that it brings up. With the accessibility, it has some, Concept C certainly has some benefits to it, mainly operational for us and not for the community. So we aren't here pushing Concept C, but that is the example of what a dramatic difference it would make to our operations. And it would have significant financial impacts. We don't go around spending an additional $20 million every day.
Right.
That's a lot of money to us and to everyone else.
Right.
And I note that there is one case, I don't know whether Mr. Duffy cited it. It was the MBTA versus the town of Somerville, in which the,
I don't think I remember reading
No,
that.
that, no.
I did bring that case by chance, because it did have to do with revenues, where the city of Somerville, not the town, it was the city, tried to restrict the MBTA's right to do advertising and apply the zoning bylaws. Maybe I didn't bring it. And there, the amount of money was, I think, less than $1 million. And the court said that it had more than a negligible impact on the revenues. It was bringing in $1 million a year, or even in some instances, I think they were less than $100,000. That was enough to support it then. But that had to do also with the MBTA's Enabling Act, because all of our Enabling Acts are different. But it's the same principle applied.
Thank you.
Okay, just a quick question. If you raise, say we said, yeah, you can go ahead and do this, and you raise the elevation up that high, and you cause the adjacent properties issues with flooding, how much of a liability is that? And the reason I bring this up is because there was some discussion about this, that this board could be liable for that. And apparently there's some case floating around the state that this has been mentioned.
Well, I'm not aware of that case. I think we would be responsible for that. If
Right.
our work, clearly, if our work resulted in artificial changes to the environment that caused damage to another piece of property, that would be a responsibility that we would bear. This is also going to go to DEP for a Chapter 91 license. I think you're going to have that level of review there. And if so, you're in good company with the state. But I think the DEP is going to take a hard look at this as well and have that. But again, based upon the guidelines that we've produced, even though we have experiences as 4 years old and we never forget them, the professional guidelines that we have and the engineers we have are saying, no, we're doing everything correctly, and that even in those hurricane events, that it's not going to cause any type of damage to any adjacent properties because of the slopes that we've encountered, the bulkhead we have up on front, and the water will recede the same way it comes back.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. Anything else? Cooney?
If all else fails, you could try 2 other concepts. These would be Y and Z. Y would be to build a tunnel from Brick Hill Road to Woods Hole Terminal and take care of all the traffic. And then Z would be to get rid of the boats. You load everybody onto duck boats up in your parking lot in Thomas Landers, and they drive down to Woods Hole or out on Surf Drive, depending on the tourist route, and over to Woods Hole, and that saves everything.
Imagine all the cancellations.
Courtney's a regional planner.
Yeah.
The bridge.
All right, nothing else here? Jen?
I can't reach him.
Jen,
No, I'm all set. Oh,
No, I'm not serious.
did you look at any additional measures, Bill, on protecting the old grass at all? And no, you can't build a rock revetment out there, I'm
I
sorry.
know, I heard. Well,
Don't even bring it up again.
Go ahead.
Okay,
We have, what you have there is correspondence from our neighbor, the Tullys.
correct.
And at first, they thought that there wasn't need for anything there to protect the eelgrass, that they didn't think that the steel pile barrier that we had proposed would help at all. And then I think they had an internal disagreement in the family. The son, I think, thinks it may help. And so they have asked us, before we start construction, to look at that situation. And it's in everyone's best interest to save that eelgrass. Our construction phasing, we don't get to that area of the property for a few years. We start, first we have to move, and then we start with the demolition of the building, and then we start with the excavation. So during that time, I think it behooves everyone for us to look at that, and with our engineers and with the Tullys, our neighbors, and see, does that steel barrier that we put there, the non-structural one, is that the right solution for it? Is that going to help? Is that going to hurt? And try to make an educated decision with that. So we would be more than happy to have that in the order of conditions, that before we start the dredging down at that location, that we have looked at that and worked that out with them. Does that answer that question?
Yes.
Just for the
Actually,
record.
one thing, Mr. Chairman, the Tullys have said that they sent, I don't know, did you get their second email?
That's the second one.
The
That's
last
son,
one,
yes,
that
that's
they
what we
said,
discussed.
that
Pre-construction analysis.
pre-construction, and that they would, in order to achieve the survey and monitoring, we would not object in principle to having the people access our property. And that was one of my original concerns at the hearing, was to monitor, one, that beach, and two, the eelgrass bed, and that can't be done unless you have permission from that property owner to access the property, because you have to do the beach, the profiles on the beach to do that.
So we've met with the Tullys actually in our office.
Okay, good.
And they're not objecting to that at all. And
Okay, well, we would probably, if the board were to issue a favorable order of conditions requiring this type of monitoring, it would also require a written statement from the family.
More than this.
More than this, just saying, yes, we give them permission. Because this says in principle.
Yeah.
I need something a little bit more concrete that says, yes, we give them permission to access our property.
We can get that.
Thank you.
All right, you good, Jen?
I'm
We'll
good.
open it. Okay, anyone from the public want to comment?
I'm Catherine Bumpus. I'm co-president of the Woods Hole Community Association, and I'm sorry to have sent you this letter so late. And I know there's a lot in it. Would you mind if I went through it then? Because you haven't had an opportunity to.
If you want to do, sure, if you want to sum it up, that'd be great, sure.
I'm not sure I can sum it up. It's got
Okay.
a lot of points. I think we'll go through them a couple at a time. I think our feeling is a number of,
What's that?
okay.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Sorry
It's
about
okay,
that.
Jen. I'm sure you have. I think, given a number of us who've read other orders of conditions and other NOIs, we've gone through this and think that if you approve it, it needs some fairly significant items in your order of conditions. So we'd say that certainly what you were just talking about with the beach to the south is very important to get monitoring on it for during construction and post-construction, because not all the effects are related to just the dredging. The effects may be related to the ferry operations too. So it should have a full pre-construction survey and a post-construction survey and a period of evaluation afterwards to make sure the eelgrass is in good condition. I think you need to also consider what activities are allowed during the time of year restrictions for winter flounder. A lot of this work they expect to be taking place during that time. Are you going to be allowing demolition below mean low water? Is excavation within the confines of the old bulkhead considered dredging or not? That needs to be clarified. Will it be allowed? Will pile driving be allowed? Will sheet pile driving be allowed? Because I know that certain orders recently have not allowed that in different locations. There is a question as to whether or not silt curtain and debris brooms can be deployed effectively in this location. The water's quite deep, there's tidal fluctuation, there's current. I included, and I don't know if Jen printed it for you, but in the email there's an Army Corps document that goes through deployment of silt curtains. If you're dredging there and you have eelgrass both to the north and the south, and the silt curtains don't work, you will be getting sediment transfer there. When the blacktop's removed, the erosion control measures need to be considered. Best management practices are sort of a big basket that you may want to firm up a little bit in the order. When your dewatering dredge spoils and it occurs on the deck of the barge, what sort of containment will take place? And will the silt curtains be enough for that? How will they be identifying the contaminated fill? Because they know they have contaminated fill, how will it be being assessed as it's coming off site? How often will it be tested? And will there be new soil samples taken to make sure that they have cleaning? After the demolition and the final dredge of the fill pier, we'd suggest that an underwater video survey take place so that you know that all the contaminated, if there's old creosote piles and things like that, that they have all been removed. This is a big job. It's significant. It's taken you all a lot of work. I've only had to read one NOI recently. You've had to read a lot. It's taken a lot, I know, of staff's time. And so I think the community association believes that an environmental monitor would be appropriate in this case. I know that you've used them for projects in the past, and I think that really would help ensure that things were taken care of appropriately. There are eelgrass beds to the north of this site also that may have the same issues that the eelgrass beds to the south have, so they should also be monitored for a period of time. Again, a written plan rather than just best management practices for stockpiling unplaced fill on site. So when the fill is coming in and they're getting ready to put it in place, what's going to happen with that so that it's contained and not running off into the water. A standard condition that I've read in lots of your orders are the use of bio oil. If Lori was here, she would be supporting that. There should also be a requirement that the training of the new stormwater shutoff valves be put in place.
Can I just interrupt you for a second? I think we discussed that, didn't we? A training, you were gonna, talked about training for this?
Training, monitoring, we have a maximum,
Please. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Just yell from the back, Bill.
we have a Maximo computerized maintenance program that provides training and routine routine maintenance on all of the equipment on site. And so that they would certainly be covered by that program.
But it would be something that would be right into the orders.
Well, I mean, this is a new system for them.
Yeah.
So one would expect that they'll pick that up, but given that it's new and that they're counting on it for making the environment better and saying things that are much better. You know, DPW says this is much better than the current system, so let's make sure it actually works the way they're saying it will actually work.
I agree with you.
There are a few other issues that are still outstanding that really aren't order of conditions issues, but I think they just need to be out there in the public. You are raising the grade at 6 feet. I mean, this is not something that has generally been accepted by the Concom on other projects in the town.
Yeah, cool, yeah, for sure.
You know, so it's just, let's all be upfront about it. Steamship Authority is encroaching on another 47,000 square feet of water, community water, that will now be under their control. So, because of the docks moving out, because of where the boats will be,
That's okay.
because of, you know,
I wanted to know where that figure came from, that you're counting the configuration of the 3 slips.
yes.
Okay.
I took the scale out and
Nope,
ran it around.
okay. I just wanted to know where the number came from.
Whether or not that sheet pile wall ends up to the south and whether or not it's a hazard to navigation is something that should be considered. And the fueling was sort of answered this evening. I hadn't heard it discussed before. The underground fuel pipes are a new thing. And so seeing those in a V zone is different. They have not existed before. It's good to know that there won't be on-site fuel storage, but whether or not fuel ends up in the lines, I don't know how that all works. But it's something that I think deserves some looking at. So those are the comments that the Community Association came up with together. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine, and I did print this out for them, so they all have a copy.
Great.
You got a good copy of this, right?
Okay.
Okay.
So, just to address a couple things. The fuel oil system that we have is not new. We've been using it for 10, 15 years in Hyannis. It's been installed in Hyannis since 1994. We added to it in 2009. It's a proven system. It's a double wall pipe, non-corrosive fiberglass, and we've never had a spill in Hyannis with this system.
But I mean, the question of training was,
Yeah.
and again, that's Hyannis, and this is Woods Hole.
Well,
So,
the staff will be trained, again, the staff will be trained. The boats interchange all the time, so the crews are familiar with the Hyannis system for the most part, but, the landside.
How about
The landside staff, with any new project, when I installed sewage pump outs, a couple of years ago, you can't imagine the training we had to go through. It was like a night, it was completely new to everybody. So we're aware of that, and we will certainly do the training that's required. The silt curtains, I know, I've listened to Catherine now 4 or 5 times complain about the silt curtains in deployment. We've given you drawings showing the whole area enclosed in a silt curtain, and that's really just to depict an illustration of where the silt curtains will be used. In fact, the success, in order to succeed with silt curtains, the smaller the area you enclose, the more successful you are. So within that area that we showed in the drawings, we will probably be using smaller containment areas as we move along with the construction. We're not going to be enclosing acres, or thousands of feet, because I agree. If it were 1,000 feet, I agree with it. We couldn't manage it, but it'll probably be just around the barge in the immediate work area where we're driving piles, where the immediate area where we're dredging. We're not dredging a lot of material here. We've dredged more material out of this site in other years. When we brought when we had emergency dredging in the existing slip to back in 2005 because one of the boats grounded, and then when we brought the island home in, we dredged both slips again, and we've done it successfully. So I think we can do this without affecting the resources. We've done it in the past, so I'm confident we can do it again. Just- The other comment about moving out in the water, in fact, we're creating more ocean by removing that pier than we are filling and moving out. I mean, we operate in that area now with the boats turning around and maneuvering in and out of there. We're not, so I don't see an increase in that area. Oh, yeah, okay. So Catherine brought up the fact that we have contaminated soil. We've already recorded this with the DEP and you know, all that material will be removed with a licensed site professional on site. It has to be, because it's already recorded with DEP, and they're going to be there monitoring it. And the material will get a hazardous material billing to wherever it needs to go. Again, it's been done before. You know, we had this similar problem in Fairhaven, and we can manage this. This is, you know, and DEP will manage it for us as well. And we will have we have a licensed site professional working on this now. If there's any other questions or concerns regarding Catherine's comments, I can answer it. I can't think of additional information right now. Go ahead.
Just, yeah, I didn't have a chance, Catherine, to read this until just now, so. And under other issues, you talk about the raising of the grade, which is obviously the same as my concern. You say it was at least 6 feet, and I believe your testimony, Bill, was that you were gonna add roughly 4 to 4.5 feet.
The site is, elevation in that area is between 5 and 6 feet. And
Yeah,
we're going
right,
to
you're going to
10.5.
what, elevation?
10.5.
10.5, so,
Okay, and the building is gonna be at 13, so there's, you know, we're gonna have a little ramp from the plaza
yeah.
to the building.
So you're not going up 6 feet, you're going up about 4 or 4.5.
Right.
That's
What's the difference?
It depends on where you measure. So,
Hang on a second.
sorry, it is different in different locations.
Okay, fair enough.
Clearly, out at the end of the dock, where the bulkhead will now end, the elevation given on your plan is 4 feet, 4 and a little bit. The new elevation will be 10. So out there, yeah, yes, the catch basin elevation, I believe, I've read the number. So on your plans, the elevations are shown for catch basin height.
Okay,
So that's the number, that's the elevation given there, where the photograph is in the back. And they're going to an elevation of 10 there. So that's 6 feet.
so basically they're, yeah.
The bottom of the catch basin or the top of the catch basin?
It's coming off the survey mark. So whatever the surveyor
You
planned.
have two, you have a rim elevation and a bottom elevation.
So that it's usually the rim elevation.
that you could-
No, please through the chair, okay?
So we can pull it out and look. If Bill and I disagree on what elevation to use, that's fine, but that's the number that I used, was the elevation given on the plan to get, if you're going from an elevation of 4 to an elevation of 10, you're adding 6 feet.
Okay. You're checking the elevations right now, Russ?
Let me respond.
sure where
You know,
she's-
I said elevation 5 to 6, that's the average grade elevation.
No,
You know, Catch
I
basins
understand
are
where you're
designed
both
to be
coming from.
low points to
Yeah,
drain
I
water.
understand where you're both
I'm not
coming
trying to deceive anybody here.
No, that's why I wanted to have this discussion. I want to make sure we're all on the same page. We understand each other, that yes, it's an average. Yes, there may be places that are more and less, you know.
And also, it's not the entire site, because we grade up and then we grade back down to the back, so it's not It's just up to the terminal building and then back down the other side.
So, Catherine, did you get which plan did you get that off of? Because I've got a post redevelopment condition drainage map.
Nope.
There's a pre and then there's a post. Sure.
This one's gonna be, Catherine, this one will be easier. It's
Yeah.
scroll.
That's already
This is the
rolled out.
record.
Yeah.
Playing the record.
Yeah.
You guys are killing everybody at the moment.
I know.
All you can hear is
Okay, that's intended.
This is, yep, this is hearing 5.22 for that one. This is 4.5, which is. That's over there, that's going to be gone. So this one will still exist.
No, none of those catch basins are going to
Yes,
exist.
because your line runs right here.
It's a whole new stormwater system,
No,
Catherine.
the elevation.
The
Right,
ground
this
will
portion
still
is
be
going to be
there.
a little bit higher, that's a little bit lower than the average. But for the most part of the site,
This is around height of
4.6.
4.69.
And these are the low points on the site, because they're catch basins.
4.5. So yes, they're low.
Do we have a contour
Here's, you have a 20-foot leading to, there's some contours here.
That's 6.45,
Here's the forks.
that's 6.84, 5.17. I mean,
Yeah, I know.
I mean, this is-
it is what it
this
is,
your
and it has to be
6-foot
what it's
contour.
has to be.
And you're right, you're gonna have, whereas a catch basin, you're gonna be low, 'cause that's where you want.
These are the numbers that we used, so.
What I'm getting at is, I have the same concerns about the impact of it, but I don't think we're looking at an average increase, Catherine, of 6 feet there. I'm looking at more like an average increase of 4.5 to 5 over the whole site. And yeah, it's gonna be a little higher right up in that area, because that area was a little slightly lower, but those are spot elevations too. You know, you're talking about the rim of a catch basin, and it does tend to slope down, so 8 or 10 inches, or 2 or 3 feet away from that catch basin, is there a 6-inch drop? Is there who knows? I think there are enough spot elevations that number of 4.5 feet average is probably, 4 to 4.5 feet average over the whole site is probably pretty accurate.
Over that portion of the site.
Yeah. So I mean, it's still a question of, is that problematic? You're providing information from FEMA that says it isn't. My gut and Applied Coastal's analysis differs with that. Who's right? I mean, it's dueling experts. I mean, the only way we're gonna find out for sure is the next hurricane that comes along. And hopefully you're right.
I think Steve and I actually went to a FEMA presentation on flood protection because,
It was a 2-day course.
it was a 2-day course, and at Hui, believe it or not, so you folks should, if they give it again, you should try it. It was amazing to me how much information is out there, because I don't design for flood protection every day.
No, I know you
And, I was amazed at how much experience and how much information they have gathered throughout the country and experience they have. So I have a lot more, walked away with that, from that course with a lot more confidence in what FEMA is recommending.
All right, anything
And-
else from the public?
And the final note is if some of the climate change models are accurate, Woods Hole will be under 4 or 5 feet of water in 80 years, and this will all be moot.
That's what we use the duck boats.
Yeah, that's when the duck
Okay.
boats come in.
All right,
Mr. Chair, I move that we close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
so we have a motion by Mary and a second by Jamie. Close the hearing, take it under advisement. One more time, any other comments from the public? From the commission? Okay, hearing none, call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right, vote orders and conditions. Next up on the list here.
We need to get our friends back.
Yes. Anyone need a minute?
They have to
Wanna
come.
keep going?
Yeah, I'd like to keep it
Just
going,
gotta
but we
grab-
need those guys.
Yeah. What do you want?
You don't need those guys for right now. You can go. They're coming. Yeah, I'll go get them.
I'm sure they'll notice something is changing.
So for, call Tonsett.
3 Tonsett Road, Jamie. I can't, this one I don't,
I'll go get them.
this one's not registering to me for some reason.
Tonsett, the patio.
Oh, yeah.
Remember the little gravel patio that was there after Dave did his survey?
Right.
Betsy, Mike.
That was on the beach, right?
Having a brain seizure, I just can't remember this.
I remember this one now. This is right down on the water. This was all,
What part of town?
Patio goes, plantings have to change.
down on
Oh,
the Cotuit,
yep, yep,
Sands
yep,
Road,
yep, yep, yep,
that
yep.
red.
I
Dave
got it,
Martin,
yep.
the gravel patio was there.
I had trouble, well, you know how the, I was saying too,
Yeah.
One way.
yeah, and
So-
the way you need to go isn't marked. There's no.
No, there
Turn 'em
isn't
off.
any. It's kind of funky down there.
Welcome back.
Patio removed and changed the plantings to more substantial plantings, because I don't think the plantings that he has there are really going to survive. I think they should,
We did.
we did. Can we just,
Yeah,
guys, please
we're really
focus.
impatient.
Can we add the beach,
Go ahead, Jen.
add beach grass to, the planting area, and also add some more salt tolerant and hardier plants? It'll be a finding that it's an unpermitted patio, and a finding that the proposed deck is under. Did he design it to be under the 200 square foot?
Yeah, and I
Yes.
think, I
He
believe
did.
Mike mentioned something about, he wanted the sonotubes checked, or he wanted them
Yeah,
reinforced, Mike?
correct.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think it's probably
Special
like one of
condition,
the
improve
codes,
existing.
you know. That thing's gonna, as it fills, it's gonna go away.
Plants. Remove patio. Finding under 200 square feet. And the special condition, bring current deck up to code, correct?
Sounds good.
All right.
I move that we accept this as discussed.
Second.
Thank you.
So a motion to accept, Betsy, second by
Jamie.
Jamie. Wow. Jamie.
Jamie jumped right in there.
I know, good for you. Any other discussion?
Never
Hearing
mind, I
none,
was
call for the
drowning in
vote. All
that.
those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed, no. That's unanimous, so moved. Number 2 is 128 Little Neck Bars Road.
It's anybody's, well, it's not yours, yes.
What is it?
128 Little Neck Bars Road.
This was the one where it's out in the DCPC and it had the patio that,
I think the patio should go.
that's what staff would recommend. I mean, it cannot be permitted, so, let me find the right plan, I got Mark's old plan. I do wanna make a finding about that salt marsh, because we could have chased that thing all over the place. So they made a judgment call in the field with Mark, finding on marsh. You know, it was one of these,
Velocity zone?
the staff would
Yeah.
recommend that, the staff would
Here,
recommend that the patio have to be removed, and you have had other patios that have just been like grassed areas.
offered to reduce
It's
it.
just not permitted under your regs.
But the mitigation's off the table if they won't let them reduce it.
What was that,
But
Jimmy?
it's not permitted,
I'm just making a comment.
okay?
Oh, wait, that they are going to remove the other plantings. They do have to put some plantings, but,
Right,
These
but he's
plantings are
saying
in.
if
There were new
we won't let him reduce the patio, he's not gonna do the other.
the other plantings, I mean, that's a
additional
judgment call on the
outdoor
board.
use. That's all I'm saying.
Well, let me,
Mitigation offset.
There's also this, it's not the, what is this pad back here? I forget what
The
it is.
generator
The
and,
generator.
No, that's the generator pad, that's what, basically the original project was to add the generator
Right, and
pads.
I asked a long time ago about getting it out of the A zone, and
They
they
never
wanna
will.
conceal it, but they can just plant something someplace else and conceal it.
Do you want the generator pad out of the A zone? Are you talking the utility shed?
No,
All right,
I need to move it up.
oh, generator pad, got it.
It's not that big a deal, but I just,
So here's my question, where's
you
the
know, there
electrical
are-
service? Does it show on here? 'Cause we might-
What's the,
was that the
I don't have the
thing?
plan in front of me, what's the dimension of the generator
yeah.
pad?
Okay.
20 square feet.
That measures
two-way
what?
zone.
so, I mean, they could put it here.
It's not
Four
in the
by
A
five?
zone.
Or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Is that really worth getting in a swivet about?
no.
I mean, make them put a couple of little more bushes in and case closed.
I just, I mean, it's, if it were already, you know, if it were there, I would say, okay, don't bother, but it's not.
Mike, you got something?
I mean,
Could we
I
go
think,
back?
I think there's a justified more concern about the patio in the front,
I agree, I
you know?
just,
I mean,
I agree.
Can we go back to the patio for a second?
Yeah.
If we take the patio out, they're gonna put in grass?
No, basically, if they take the patio out, they shouldn't be mowing that wetland area anyway. So they were adding, here, wait, was it, they were gonna add, they were gonna add 150 square feet.
My 94-year-old father wants to sit there, and I said, well, you can sit on a rocking chair on the lawn.
But my point is, we're getting, I thought they made a pretty convincing argument to me.
Well,
That
let's,
we're getting the vegetation, the resources in better condition than if we don't do this.
They're gonna,
They're-
they're gonna be
Let Mike finish, okay? I want Mike to finish his statement first, and then you can comment, Betsy, okay?
And he's gonna take we're gonna take, and we're gonna have the same area, isn't, we're not gonna get any vegetation for it, they're gonna put in lawn, which,
has a
Good.
function.
hmm?
It has an environmental function.
I think the shrubbery they're putting in, the plants are of more value. I'm sitting there saying that we have this notion of the project has to be better than when it started. And I think that. Now, if the argument is it's not applied under our regulations, and we're afraid of the consequences of this in other places, then I'm willing to listen to that. But they made a pretty convincing argument to me that we were better off by letting them, they'll reduce the patio, and we'll get in the environment in a better shape. And I kind of bought it.
That's exactly my argument. If I were somebody listening out there, I would say, do whatever you want. And if you say, if they call us on it, we'll just put in a little bit more
Pavers.
buffer. So we can
Patios.
put in stuff
Like patio boards.
illegally wherever we want in the A zone. That's what you're saying. That's what you're saying to the public.
Like
Go
that.
ahead, maybe you won't get caught up with it.
That's,
Or when you do stuff, forgive us.
that is a concern, and I'm a big one on this business of, at times I don't think we're tough enough on people who violate our regulations. You know what, we're a pretty mean kind of.
Well, the thing is
But here, it's not that. I mean, I'm looking at the end result. The end result is the resources are better off.
okay, can I bring something up? This was brought to the applicant's attention back in 2011, and they ignored it. So, I'm sorry, Mike, I'm gonna have to disagree
And you have a
with
new
you on
owner
that
now
one.
that is,
Buyer beware too. Go ahead, Courtney.
The only reason it's being addressed now is because they
They want
want
the
a
other.
utility shed. It was brought up in 2011 when they wanted to put in their sewage system, the Title V, which, by the way, is proposed to be installed within a couple of days. They still haven't addressed the patio from back in 2011.
Get quiet,
So it's well documented that that was an issue. So as far as the new buyer is concerned, it's well documented if they came and chose to look at the records on this case, that that patio was unpermitted.
I don't have, like Mike, I'm not sure that I have a heart attack over some patio blocks. But one of the issues there, when you look at the map, clearly the area where that patio is was built up and leveled out. Now, to me, when was that done? Was that done as part of the construction of the house? And so it was there and they put the patio in as an afterthought? Or in order to put the patio in, did they build it up? And I think that's important to
We don't know that, Courtney.
No, we don't know
We have
that.
to make a decision based on the information we have at this
So,
point.
so really what we're looking at is if the patio stays the patio goes.
Basically, that's what you're looking at.
Yeah, so.
I mean, they're doing,
so
and
we
they
need a
want to
motion.
add the utility
I'll make a
shed.
motion, and I'll make it in a positive sense. A motion that we approve the reduced patio.
Well,
and is that in conjunction with the generator and?
Yes.
You reducing the size of the patio?
Reducing, I propose, they're gonna reduce the size of the patio,
So-
they're gonna put in the benches, and we're gonna let them put in the
your
patio.
motion is to accept it as they presented it.
Correct.
Fine,
Let's throw the whole thing out
let's
there.
throw the whole thing out, there, then we can come back and argue about it later.
Well, I'm not gonna argue about it. I'm not gonna vote for it.
Well, then fine.
Then take a vote, guys.
I made the
Come on.
motion.
I've got a motion, now I need a second.
Second.
Okay.
For
We have a motion by Mike and a second by Mary. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. No.
No.
Doesn't
Good
carry.
time.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, doesn't
Change it a
carry.
little bit and try again.
Yeah, doesn't carry.
I make
You
a
need a
motion
quorum.
that everything passes but the patio goes. Everything else stays the same.
Second that.
And that would be replaced with grass?
Or they can put shrubs.
Yeah.
I'd be happy if they put shrubs there, but I don't suspect they will.
But wait, if they take the
It has to be
patio off,
vegetated.
they're gonna, they're
Not
not.
do
whatever they want.
The shrubs don't go in.
I know.
That'll be
Mitigation,
their
in other words,
choice.
The mitigation goes away. We
Not
understand
all
that.
the
Yeah, we
mitigation, just the mitigate, just
Correct.
this little bit.
What was it, 200s?
No, it's
Yeah.
588.
It's quite a bit.
Okay.
So,
It was 588, all right.
let's be clear. Patio goes away, the related mitigation goes away, they replant it with grass or
Guys.
bushes or whatever.
Make it easy for yourselves. You don't have the patio. It'll be their choice not to plant the 588.
Exactly.
Okay, so leave that, don't touch the mitigations. They made it clear, that'll be their choice,
Right,
okay?
that's my motion.
Second.
So we have a motion by Betsy,
Too
and a second by
confusing
Mary.
sometimes.
Any other discussion? Okay, I'm gonna call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. You're a no, Mike?
I'm a no.
Okay, Mike's
Okay.
a no?
Oh, yes.
Raise your hand if you're a no.
Oh, no.
Oops.
Okay, raise your hand if you're a yes. Okay, that one passes.
Thanks, Mom.
Just keep it simple, guys. You guys always try to like,
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it?
Are we driving you
157
crazy?
Sherwood.
wait a minute, let me just
We're cutting it
know
off when we get done with these two. The other ones can wait.
patio. All right,
Two for Sherwood.
Two.
let me catch up to you guys, okay? Hey, give me a minute.
You have the Sherwood one?
I do.
157 Sherwood.
I will on a roll.
I'm not, which Shorewood is it though?
One's the,
150.
one's
No,
the,
we have two.
here,
There's two, one
and
to
one
dock
is
and
to raise and rebuild.
All right, so obviously I didn't distinguish between the two, so let's go with
Just two separate ones.
there. This one is,
One of
okay, let's go with the house, because you guys will just, that'll be another one you guys are
What
gonna
number was
debate.
that?
157 Shorewood.
That's the house.
This is the
Yeah.
house. This is
The
the
dock part is-
23-inch tree. that's
Yeah,
going
the
down
dock
the-
part of this one's pretty easy, but the
Okay.
house one, you guys had a major issue with, you had asked for them you had asked them to look at shifting the house.
Oh, I remember this one.
Concern was the
All
garage.
right, hang on, I got my plans all blended up
Garage
here.
is there,
Hold
I
up,
didn't want it to be part of it.
Courtney has something to say about this.
I do too.
wait a minute. I wanna, guys, I gotta get the right plan.
No, I don't think our regulations support having them, asking them to do that.
What's that?
Shifting.
Yeah, I do have something to say.
But the second issue becomes,
I just want to make
Okay.
sure for the record that we're all on the same page
We're
here.
all on the house.
We're all on the house, okay.
We're all
Go
in the
ahead.
house. I'm still working on it.
So I just want to point something out to Mary. This was a question that a wetland scientist down at the University of the Virgin Islands, who I spent last weekend with, said, well, how do you do mitigation? Is it square footage or is it functionality? And I said, well, of course, that's a very good point, but it's, much easier to say square footage. But I said, we do add that you have to have some
I
trees,
don't have the revised.
additional trees, because of the role that trees play. So a tree, a native tree, even if it's standing by itself in the A zone, plays a huge role.
But it doesn't meet, a tree standing by itself does not meet the definition in the regulations of the naturally vegetated area, which, if I can find
It's
them.
naturally vegetated because it's an oak tree, and it's a buffer because it's the 100-foot zone.
Naturally vegetated refers to a community of plants. And, this tree, I'm not against, I would prefer to be arguing the opposite. But I don't think our regulations support asking these people to do this, because the definition of a naturally vegetated area refers to a community of plants, and what we've got there is a shed, an asphalt driveway, and one rhododendron with this tree. And I don't think that, I think that it's in a redevelopment area, it's not in a naturally vegetated area.
Trees are natural vegetation in the.
Yes, they are, but they don't meet the definition in the regulations, unfortunately.
So would you be happier, Mary, if the tree?
Naturally vegetated means a plant community representing a normal successional developmental stage appropriate to the habitat that would develop without continual interference by man. I don't think that's what we're looking at there.
An acorn, developing into an acorn tree is a natural progression.
Is it a plant community?
no.
Yeah, it's a plant community with one species in it.
One plant.
I'm with Mary. I agree with that.
And the other thing is that it's clear in our regulations that taking down trees in the A zone is allowable because we have a standard for mitigating
That's
that.
for, if you read that part, because I did, because you said that the last time, it refers to trees in the D zone as well.
Yeah, it refers, it says A zone and B zone.
No, it doesn't. It says in the buffer zone.
So, Mary, would you be happier if the tree were plopped down in the middle of a mitigation area with lots of other plants that were part of that mitigation?
If that's a feasible thing to do with that tree, yes, I would like to,
Hold on for a second,
I
guys.
would
Well,
be in
do we-
favor of that, but I don't, that's
Do
a,
we
it's a big
have
tree to
at
do
this
that.
site a proposed mitigation area where there are going to be, in your mind, well, how you would define a community of plants would be a variety of native growth that's going to be put in as a buffer? Would you be much happier if your tree were plopped into the middle of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I'm happy about this, but I think it's a small lot. They're pretty constrained, and I don't think that our regulations support us telling them they can't take that tree down. Because it's not in a naturally vegetated buffer, it's in a redevelopment area.
Is they taking the tree?
What is it, 6 feet from the asphalt driveway,
Are
and
they
it's got
taking the
no
tree because of the?
companions
Are they taking the tree because it's necessary to take it
for the
for the
house.
construction? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So but that's not without precedent that we require people to, in that kind of situation,
move
to
it.
plant a tree somewhere else.
Oh, gosh, no, I'm all in favor of that.
Yeah, but they're
I'm all in
not,
favor of
they're
that.
not gonna move this. But
I
there's
don't think
another
it's
issue with
realistic to move this
You
tree,
gonna bring the other
though.
issue up?
Huh?
You gonna bring the other issue up?
Go ahead, you go ahead.
So, where's the plan?
Here.
It's probably
well,
tree
here's
trees
a
that
little-
have to go,
Is
that
that
10-inch
that has to
pine
do?
and
Oh,
that
so you mean
24
with the
inch
moving closer?
Yeah, this is moving closer. This is moving closer to the resource.
No,
How?
No,
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 it
it's not.
isn't.
No.
No, it's
moving
not.
Here's the
house,
Sideways,
right?
relative to the resource.
Right, this is the existing house, this one right here?
I know, but the deck
he showed,
was
he,
illegal.
didn't he provide documentation that part of the deck was original, and therefore the new
But he didn't show
construction
what
is not
part.
closer?
He doesn't show what part is. And that's 69 feet.
That's
And
right.
63 feet.
He doesn't show what's new and what's old.
All right, and you
No,
know what,
but he
this,
had-
this file's downstairs, unfortunately. I'll go grab it. You want me to go grab it?
Do you have what's the old?
We
what was
might have some,
permitted?
we might have some aerials in it, so keep talking, I'll
All
go
right.
grab it.
Can
Yeah,
can we,
This
can-
is
can
60.
we add
Yeah,
one
I
more,
mean,
one more thing to the pot while we're
This is 63.
Yeah, if it's moving closer. That's the issue.
So do we know when this deck was built?
It's illegal, they told us, but part of it was legal. But they didn't
His
tell us what
letter
part.
says approximately 120 square feet of the deck existed in the 70s.
120?
So it could have been. where's
What he's saying is not the entire deck is unpermitted.
this part is permitted.
Right.
But his plan, where the problem is, his plan doesn't show
Agreed.
the original part of it. So we can't, what do we judge? We can only judge on what is on the plan.
Right.
And if we,
Right, but that was an issue we raised once, and then he came back with this documentation saying that part of that deck was
But he didn't
pre.
show us what part.
Unless we have aerials, I don't know how else you're gonna tell.
All the modifications have been added to the landscape plan, let me see.
well, I think we can make it, however, whatever we rule, we can make a finding that there was
But that's what,
testimony that there was that the deck was added to illegally. However, the owner did not provide us with any documentation showing exactly what was added. Therefore, we can only go with what's on the plan.
How many square feet did he say?
120.
You see?
I know.
20 feet.
I mean, and if they choose to argue with that, that's fine. They
Yeah,
can
he's
come
showing
in
on
and
this,
ask for an amendment, or they can do whatever they want.
that's the existing house.
You know, they don't have to take us to
And
court,
that's the-
but they
The
can,
deck.
we're not
if you
turning the
remember,
project down, but we're saying
On site, the deck.
there's
actually
parts of
goes
it that
like
they
this
can't
now.
do.
I don't remember.
I mean, the house is fine, no matter how you slice it.
So it's smaller
It's,
than that.
it's
He's
their
saying this
proposed
is
deck.
part of the deck that existed,
And
Oh.
That's probably where it
and
was,
that
right?
distance is
You guys still arguing about
69.5.
63, 69 feet?
Now he's at 63.
Yeah.
We're still arguing about
Yeah,
that.
because that's the whole point.
That's
was
my
like,
understanding
things is
anyway.
moving close to the resource area,
All right,
I
but
can remember looking
Hang
at
on,
this, and
guys.
at some point, something about it finally made sense
show
to
me
me.
where you're showing. Show me where you're saying.
But
Right, because this is, I'm sorry, this is the deck that
Here's
exists
the
today.
old house.
Correct.
Here's it.
And all he's saying is,
Oh,
this is the
okay.
deck that was originally on the
The
house.
deck would probably be
okay, so this
something-
exists
not-
today, or is it
This is
proposed? It
69.
exists today?
That's today,
This is
Okay, so that's 39.1 feet,
right, but his proposed,
So how can we,
way
We can't
further
go with
away.
right,
we can't,
No,
they
we're-
didn't
we're
provide us
guessing-
with adequate
We're guessing
documentation.
behind that, where it's 69 feet,
What-
there's 250 feet of deck, so we're figuring.
250 square
So-
feet of deck.
Yeah, so we're
One
figuring
solution-
125.
One solution is that we can approve this, except for the deck.
Yeah.
And moving
They will
this,
have to come back
this
to
gone,
us
now it's gonna go up to
with
63
a
feet.
deck
So
proposal.
how is that moving closer to the, again,
Yeah.
we're running into this problem of
We-
this, what was illegal,
I'm
what
really
was the deck.
confused about this question of the distance.
I mean,
Here you go.
if they don't,
We have a bigger plan here.
2015.
This is
This is
69 feet.
2015.
Right.
I mean, that's the simplest thing.
69.5.
So we approve the thing
That-
without the deck,
That's the old, this is the old house,
Right.
69.
and let them come back and argue for a deck based on what they provide, and they'll give us all the information we
The
want.
existing deck is 39.
Case closed, why
that's-
This
swither
deck
over
is
it?
illegal.
There.
This deck is illegal.
Huh?
120 feet of this deck
I mean,
was permitted.
does that make
You don't know
sense,
where it
Mike?
was,
Right,
but when you
okay.
go
No, but that's
from
what that
here-
69.5
From here
depicts.
to here, you get 250 square feet, so.
The issue isn't the house. No matter how you slice it, the house is fine.
You know, I think, to be
Yeah,
honest with you, Courtney's
Except the
got a
tree
good
then.
point.
Well, I mean, except for the treatment.
That's 75, I don't see a deck there, do you?
Looks like a shadow.
Right, it's a
Yeah.
shadow of the building,
Right.
okay? So we're gonna go to 86, I don't see a deck there either,
No.
okay?
Ooh, that looks like a deck.
That looks like a deck 1991.
Is there a permit for the deck?
No.
No, we
So
looked
then they
at-
hold, then why don't you sit there and say that the proposed deck can't be any closer than 69 feet from the resource area, and they have to provide a revised plan before
Or
this.
approve it, like Courtney said, approve it without the deck, and then come back and revise it, as you're saying, right? Approve it without a deck, Jim.
Yeah, they
Yeah, I
can
mean, that's really, can I have the aerial back? Oh, when you guys
One
are
sec.
done. I mean, it's really up to you guys. You can go two ways. You can approve it with the stipulation that the deck be no closer than 69 square feet, which means they're gonna have to drastically either, one, reduce the
69
deck.
feet.
69 feet.
69 feet.
Yeah, 69 feet, shift the house forward, do whatever, and come back with us with a revised plan and show that, making the findings that the original house was 69, original house, 69,
So they're gonna ship
illegal
down another oak.
deck.
See, this oak and this oak, that's the community oak.
Well,
Okay, or
Separated by house.
the problem with proposing, the problem with,
Separated by a house.
the problem with the deck, the only problem with the deck that I see
Then a bush.
is you don't want to get into the situation where they construct the house and then, well, I was gonna say, are forced to put an egress because they're gonna have a door or something there, and then they're forced to put some sort of,
Stoop.
yeah, something there. I don't know. But if you want to, it's up to you guys. Do you
I'd
approve the
it,
house
say
without the
can
deck?
be no closer than
69
Or,
feet.
or if, and no closer than,
them-
Let them work it out.
work it out.
Yeah.
the proposed deck be no closer than 69 square feet.
Proposed structure.
No,
No,
60.
69 feet.
Proposed,
Take that, too.
it's 69 feet, I'm sorry, I keep saying square feet. Proposed no closer,
Maybe 3.
69 feet from,
Well, I went back to the site and all I saw was that big tree
From the edge of the
and a
marsh.
fairly large.
is it the edge of the marsh, or is it
rhododendron.
top of the coastal bed?
no, landward edge of marsh,
Yeah,
Fine.
it's from the.
as depicted on plan.
Spruce.
Is there a coastal bank? Since that seems to be a problem for some people.
The marsh is gonna be it's the marsh.
Asphalt
Okay.
driveway and shed, it's just not.
Okay, so, do you want them to mitigate for they were proposing to mitigate for that tree? Were they not?
Six.
Well, they have to mitigate for the tree, don't they?
And didn't they say they didn't want their trees to be in the corner where you had them? They'd prefer them to be over there because then it was gonna be within their vista.
Yeah, well,
They're-
I have a reaction to that too, which is that they're gonna be visible in their vista, but they're certainly not blocking the view. I
No,
mean, the limbs are so high. I don't,
They've got a heck of a view back.
yeah, I'm not really in
So,
favor of
I mean,
moving those trees.
Well, wait a second, I thought we said these are trees that aren't there yet.
No, the ones they wanna move.
no,
No, no, no.
No, the ones they
Or am I
want
thinking of the wrong
are ones
project?
that, no, it's this project.
No,
And
the
we thought
Scarlet
there were
Oaks.
trees that were there, but then we realized they're trees that are there on the map that they're
They're
gonna put in.
proposed.
They're
Oh,
proposed trees.
And they're saying, they're just
so they're
asking,
changing their mind about,
Yeah, and
okay,
I
well,
can
there's
live
nothing.
with them putting the trees wherever staff agrees they can.
Yeah,
they
okay.
put the trees.
I missed that.
don't
think
put
we're-
it on.
But not so
I think we're a little
Smack.
hasty closing this. We should have told them to go back to the drawing boards and come back with something that works.
Well, we,
But they
problem is,
weren't, but they weren't.
Yeah.
They wanted, they were testing the water. They're gonna do the work.
Jen, these are just 3 trees that have to be planted
5
in the
trees.
A zone. 5 trees that have to be planted in the A zone.
Leave 2 of them there, move 3 of them to the other side, and I'm good.
Yeah. And see, I said you can make the decision there.
And we-
Well, if I don't,
can
you guys will
also-
talk about it for the next half hour, so.
Even for this,
You're lucky.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It might be more.
I don't know that we should go all the way to
Don't
20.
underestimate our ability here.
So, I just made a decision for you.
Well, that's the 5 trees.
Okay, 5,
So we're gonna leave that to staff, or?
yes.
All right, we're gonna move 3 Scarlet Oaks
Yep.
This is past my bedtime.
to,
Yeah, it's really,
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
It's still early.
I'm weird.
don't complain.
Okay.
Just sit through that steam.
3 of 5.
Mike and I talked.
Oh, no, you got,
Exhausted.
okay, well, you got it, you're gonna have to, you guys are not gonna like me when you hear what I have to say, but anyway, go on.
What are you gonna say?
You're gonna have to pick another hearing date because we gotta have a special meeting to vote the steamship authority.
Yeah,
We don't meet on the 6th because of town meeting.
that
Oh, we should have
deliberation's
continued it.
gonna require its own meeting for other
Yeah.
reasons.
Yeah.
I think.
Correct.
All right, all
So,
right, so let's continue on here. So do I have a motion on this?
I move that we accept it as we discussed.
Second,
Okay. And quick summary, just because we've discussed a lot. In 4
quick
words.
summary is, quick summary, you would never quick summary. Okay, we're gonna make a finding that the original house was 69 feet from the landward edge of the salt marsh as depicted on their plan. That the deck shown on the existing deck now was installed without a permit. That the proposed structure can be no closer than 69 feet from the landward edge of the salt marsh as depicted on this plan. And the 5 Scarlet Oaks they have on the south side, 2 of them remain, 3 of them moved to the north side.
I think
When
you
you-
should point out that they're proposing, where they have a proposed deck is too close. I don't think I think that's a little too subtle.
And you should say the proposed house and deck
Make it a big fat.
cannot be any
Yeah.
closer than
Closer than 60.
69 feet or
I
whatever
mean,
it
if
is.
I heard that, I'd say,
Right.
oh, okay, we can go ahead.
Right,
The
yeah.
proposed house and deck
Well,
are
Maybe no closer than
moving,
69.
I got it, moving closer to the resource area and therefore not allowed under FWR.
I think they should submit a revised.
Courtney, they're gonna
plan.
have to submit a revised plan.
But that should be stated
Got it?
prior
Revised-
to the start of construction.
No, revised plan to be approved, you guys are gonna love this one,
By us.
by the commission. Not staff, the commission.
It's fine.
Okay.
we have the motion.
We have a motion? We have a second?
Yes, we do.
Who's the second?
Me, I
Mary?
think.
Who was,
Mary.
Mary made the motion, so we have Betsy and Mary, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no, abstentions, unanimous, so moved.
No, I abstained.
You abstained? You can't make a motion.
Is
I
that
can-
right?
I can make a motion and
You,
abstain.
you abstain, oh, you abstained from the vote.
I abstained from the vote.
Yeah, not recuse.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Dock.
157, number 2, what is this?
Now we're
dock?
gonna go for the dock, and follow me, guys. This was when they legitimized the dock back in the early 90s, but at that point, the RDA said they had to file notice of intent to build a walkway to get from the upland over the marsh to the dock. That walkway was built without a notice of intent. They're coming back, because it's all dilapidated and everything. They're proposing to redo the walk, only a portion of it. I think they're only redoing the walkway, remains of extensive dock debris, replaced with walking surface with fiberglass grates, rebuild this section, and yeah, so they're just rebuilding the whole section, the whole thing, which is good.
The walkway across the marsh.
Yeah, well, the dock's kind of like mangled at the end, so they're gonna be redoing that
Is
too.
this licensed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the one that's.
The licensing, they had an
Degrading,
RDA,
right?
and they had an RDA or a notice way back when actually legitimizing the dock. Let me see if I can find what it was off the top of my head. They have a building permit for it. It was a determination of applicability. The current access to the dock over the salt marsh vegetation, the access needs to be corrected with a walkway over the marsh, which would connect the coastal bank to the dock. Railroad ties down the embankment could also be requested at the same time. Oh, good Lord, what did they do back then? A notice of intent must be filed for this work to proceed with Chapter 91 licensing.
I move that we approve as discussed.
Second.
So we have a motion by Betsy and a second by
I
Mike.
don't think it's licensed, Courtney. I think we
Approve
just,
as discussed.
they're going to for licensing.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstentions? Unanimous, so moved. Okay, now what was this, we gotta have a separate date, we'll do these other another time, right? 101,
Yeah, I
49.
can't deal with them tonight.
We'll put them on next week.
Yep.
Plus, we have to vote the two that we finished.
Let's come up with a
Basically,
date.
you've got to vote the Hayes,
Close tonight.
the three you closed tonight.
Well-
You closed Hayes, you closed Great Bay, and you closed the Steamship Authority.
Yeah.
Now, we're gonna have to do this. You guys have to pick the time. It's either gonna be in the morning, and Mary, you're probably the only, Mary and Ross, you guys are gonna have some issues with that, because I think this is gonna be a fairly lengthy discussion on the Steamship Authority. Would you rather do it at, like, in the afternoon,
Are we
like at
talking
3
next week?
o'clock?
Well,
Well,
wait a second. Why can't they do it next week at the meeting? We have a meeting on the 30th.
we could do it on the 30th.
I
You
don't
wanna
think we're gonna
talk-
have
you-
enough time to do the
No.
steamship
No,
with
so-
all that other stuff.
But let's do all the others, so Mike and I don't have to come to an extra meeting.
So,
First you bail on.
Let's do it all at the same time and share the
All right,
message.
guys,
I don't,
hang on, let's, wait a minute.
come on.
Tuesday night, after work?
No, 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 no.
Not at night.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just saying it has to be done, so we could vote, I mean, I could put them all on the agenda next week, But next week, you have
That's a long meeting, isn't it?
5 RDAs, you have
You know,
3 notices, you've got MBL, Eaton, the dredging's already asked for a continuance, so you don't have that,
Okay.
and you have 26 Sail River. We could put it on, but knowing that we could also possibly hold a special meeting if you don't wanna have the steamship authority discussion. So you're looking at 3 new notices and at least 3 continueds that you're gonna have discussions on.
I would be open to, for myself, I'd like to meet in the daytime,
That's fine with me.
anytime.
No, when I said like
Virtually anytime,
Tuesday.
Tuesday or Wednesday.
You talking about next week
Or,
or?
I mean, not, you know, afterward.
Cause I'm gonna have to take time off. to
No,
do
I'm
that.
sorry,
Okay,
early
so
is fine.
4:30,
4:30's fine,
4 o'clock?
4 o'clock's fine with me. Monday,
Jamie, would
Tuesday,
that
or
work for you?
Wednesday.
I'd do it at 4 o'clock in the morning, no problem, Lori would too.
I mean, I guess I prefer not to do it Wednesday, because then we'll just be coming back again, but,
Yeah, what,
Okay, guys,
Tuesday or Thursday, are you
Courtney,
saying?
shh,
no, not Thursday,
Courtney,
Monday or
every-
Tuesday.
let me think about this, guys, give me 1 second to think. If we don't get to it on the 30th, okay, wait a minute, 1, 2, 3, we have to have it done by the 13th. If we don't get to it by the 30th, if we don't vote them on the 30th, thank you, we could at that point set up an additional meeting for that Monday,
The following Monday.
Tuesday or Thursday. The problem with the Tuesday is that it's town meeting and I'm going to some sort of flood summit on one of those days, so I would prefer to do it that Monday. And 4 o'clock's fine with me.
Well, Jen, you're here anyway on a Wednesday.
Yeah, but I'm gonna be at a flood summit that,
No, but I mean, before our next meeting,
yeah,
if we did it at 4:30, I know you don't wanna do this.
On
Mary.
Wednesday?
Yeah.
on the
Jen's
30th.
here anyway.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It kinda gives her a
I can
break,
live with
'cause
that.
she just hangs out.
I can live with it.
You wanna do the steamship authority on the 30th at 4:30?
4:30, yeah.
Okay, that actually is,
And the other thing we need to look into too is this, if this room's open so we can meet earlier, but we've discussed this.
yeah, I know, but you have to talk to the Board of Selectmen about that and the chairman of the, Design Review Committee that went.
Do you mean general?
So, Mr. Chairman, I think you should reach out to Doug Jones.
Okay, all right, that's what I'll do then.
Laura's not
Do you
gonna,
mean every meeting we have, meet earlier?
At 6 o'clock.
Laura's not gonna want that.
I don't
Once
like
you
it
get this time of
either.
year.
Well, why
She
don't
wanted
you,
it in the winter time.
Yeah, but we can't do, I mean, if we're gonna do it one way, I'd rather, you know, if we
I-
say 6:30 or.
Hungry people, what's the
This is
problem?
what we used to do
I
in the
can't
past.
eat dinner that way.
In the past, we used to do it.
And also, I think from, based on experience, that just means that we'll meet for an extra hour.
In the past, we used to meet earlier in the winter, and then later, once with daylight, we did it with daylight savings time.
Well, we'll just leave it
Because
alone
people who
then
have
for
to
now.
work in the afternoon, I mean, people who have outdoor stuff.
okay,
in
guys,
the morning.
can we
Okay.
just
How
adjourn,
about a
please?
motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
When are we getting together?
All those in favor say aye.
All right.
All those opposed?
Oh, you and I.
We're adjourned.